Well, we haven't had the old intro for a while, have we? So I decided to bring it up tonight for a very special show. Let me fix the mic here. Welcome to another edition of Sunday Night Astro Live. I'm Robert Phoenix. I'll be your host and your guide for the next 2 hours plus. And as Ed Sullivan used to say on Sunday nights, we've got a really great show for you tonight. Really big show. Big show. Well, I got to work with Ed Sullivan. It's been a while. You do realize that there are people who are alive now who have no fucking idea who Ed Sullivan is. None whatsoever. And what a strange character Ed Sullivan was. How could there ever be anybody like Ed Sullivan? I don't know. They just a lot of these molds are just gone. They just tossed them out the door. Anyway, we got a great show ahead of us tonight. We have Darlena Watson, the return of my good friend Darlena Watson. And Darlena is actually going to do a live HD reading here for about 30, 35 minutes, 40 minutes. So she's going to give people kind of a behind the scenes look at the process of actually breaking down a human design chart with another human. Hey, what a concept. So we're bringing in a ringer tonight. And at about 6:30, we'll be joined by Mishi, the Doomer Boomer. And according to Darlena, has a lot of potential. A lot of potential in that HD chart. So we're going to crack that open, and Darlena will be here, and Michelle, the Doomer Boomer, will be here, and you'll get to see an HD reading live. It's not quite like an exorcism live. I think there's a market for that. I think there's a market for live streaming exorcisms. Think about the ratings that a live stream exorcism would get. It'd be huge, off the charts. I may have to reconsider what I'm doing here on YouTube. I have modest views, but if I really wanted to do something big, I'd partner with the Catholic Church and live stream exorcisms. That's what I do. I'd have to tie the bit to the Catholic Church, I suppose. But just think about that. This week on Exorcism Live, she was a mild-mannered young woman. Nobody ever thought that she would be literally climbing her walls and projectile vomiting up to 5 feet. That was until one day she started barking like a dog and calling her mother every single unclean name in the book. And that's when they knew there was a problem. This week on Exorcism Live from Akron, Ohio. Surprised somebody hasn't done that yet. We're coming up on Aries season. There's never a better opportunity to kickstart something like that than in Aries season. So we're going to get into Aries tonight too. After Darlena and Michelle do their thing, they're going to then we'll transition off and we'll talk about the equinox. We'll talk about Trump. Apparently, he's supposed to get arrested on Tuesday, rumor has it. And this gets back into, when I first saw Mars and Gemini, and when it was doing its thing, right? Like hitting his sun. If I'm not mistaken, it was right around that time that they went to, I'd have to go back and check. Pretty sure. It was right around that time they went to Mar-a-Lago and took all those very important documents. I think that was when Mars was first transiting his sun in Gemini. We'll go back and look. And then, of course, we have the Mars retrograde, and here comes Mars again, just 5 degrees off of his sun. Mars is at 27, his sun is at 22. So I take it back. I think Mars is at 25 right now. Let me look at my Mars. Let's see. We got transiting Mars on Tuesday. Transiting Mars is at 27. So when this came out, transiting Mars was probably around 20. When did it come out? Friday? Saturday? Might have been Friday. No little news dump. So transiting Mars is at 25. So that would be conjunct his natal sun in Gemini. So we'll get into that tonight. We'll crack that open. We'll look at the Mars effect, the Aries effect. We'll check out the energies of the upcoming equinox. And we'll do a little time travel. We'll go back to when Mars was in Aries back in 2020, when America was being burned to the ground. And we were dealing with a whole lot of martial energy during that time. So we'll revisit that time. And then last week, I talked a lot about the nodal shift into Aries. And I'm going to talk more about that tonight and how Mars and Aries is really kind of a training ground for where we're headed. So, and then we're going to cover Aries as a sign and get into some really interesting Aries stories. I got 300 Aries lined up. We're not going to talk about all of them, but we'll look at some of the interesting themes that show up again and again with Aries. I mean, just like when we began to really break down Aquarius, we kind of missed Pisces. We kind of missed the night where I was going to break down all the Pisces signs. I don't know why. I think it was one of those Sunday nights I took off, right? But we did it with Aquarius, and we could really establish and determine that there were types inside of Aquarius. Well, you'll see it again tonight with Aries. Clearly, there are Aries types, both men and women. So we'll get into that tonight. We'll go through a number of these interesting Aries personalities. So it's going to be a fun show. And we'll probably click in maybe about 2.5 hours, maybe 3. So make sure you get some refreshments, some goodies along the way. Looks like we might have a Jasper sighting. He's entered the studio. Are you gonna jump on the crown? The crown is waiting. Your throne is waiting. By the way, Peachy made her debut on the Friday show, and she's been really getting a little more comfortable with being here, which is fun to watch. And Dr. Joan has been great in terms of bringing her into the fold. Real quick, before we bring Darlena in, I just want to do a little meet and greet with who's here. This man, Michael, DJ MC, Miss Nikki here, always a pleasure. Double B, Beth Berry. There is my man, Benito, and the lovely and talented Joan S., the kitten whisperer. That's what she is. Let's see, Carissa Demke. Hi, Carissa. Musgrave Griffin. Hello, Musgrave Griffin. TJ, my man, Thomas Jordan. He's here. Whimsical Farm Girl. What's going on, Lori? Always good to see you. Let's see. There's my man, Ryan. Hello, Ryan. Capria McLaughlin, who's become a very pleasant regular addition to our shows. Always good to see you, Capria. Let's see, Ralph Winter, London Calling. Always good to hear those 2 words, London Calling. Texas Receiving. Third Eye Activated. Hey, Yoka, hey, back. There's Jake, Gucci to Goats, one of our resident superstars. Chad Warren in the house. What's going on, Chad? Lisa K is here. Let's see, Dova Haza. Hello, Dova. Jamie, checking in. Flat Earth Hippie. Kelly B. What's happening, Kelly B? There's my man, Jeff Rosen. What's going on, JR? Claire's here. Tondar in the house. Bo, Mr. Kabuki Theater. Terry Cavaletto. Hi, Terry. Let's see. Who else do we have? Neo's in. Hi, Neo. Grateful Dogs. I like that. Grateful Dogs. Jay Live. Oh, Jay, live extra. Live stream isn't already occurring? I don't know. Maybe I'm late to the party. Maybe I'm late to the party. Everything's been done already. I wouldn't be surprised. Real time is all-star cooking spit pea soup. Oh, that's good. Spit pea. This reminds me of old TBN shows and healing people. Just smack them in the forehead and heal them. Shirley Loshiaba, what's going on, Shirley? Checking in from Maryland, Big Sky. Hello from Matt and Luann, Flathead Lake in the house. Right on. Lana Anderson, the lovely Lana Anderson. I'm checking in from the Apple State, Washington. Hanging laundries, hanging out. Olga Perez. Hola, Olga. Long time no chat. I hope you're doing well. Shasta Fogg is here playing chess. Darlene for Violet. Checking in from the 210. Hi, Darlene. Will the Beast. Pluto in my second, Saturn in my third, finally. Pluto in the second is a very interesting transit. I'm just getting through it. It's made me stronger. You know, that's what's true. It's what they say. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Let's see, who else do we have? Oh, look at that. Ryan's just getting into the CBD transition here. Good job. Fran's here. Hi, Fran. Jerry Kramer. Hi, Jerry. And Red Pill 78. The Queen is here. All hail the Queen. That's Lisa K. Good to see you, Lisa. Rainbows and Butterflies. And we are off and running. What a good group we have tonight. Let's do a little True Hemp Science. And then let's bring the one and only Darlena Watson on the show. Let's see if we can get to the True Hemp Science webpage here. Give you a little visual while I give you the pitch. Let's see, where we go. There it is. Yes, I am over 21, last time I checked. All right. So there we go. Take in the relaxing atmospherics of the truehempscience.com website. And this is the place where you can get all of your CBD needs met, high quality CBD, organically sourced. And processed as well, organically sourced and processed. Chris oversees every single part of it, and you will not be dissatisfied with your order or the product that comes your way. And if you order $100 or more and type in 15 MINS, you will get some free product. Why not do it? Instead of just ordering, just type in 15 MINS, get some free product thrown into the goodie bag. $150 or more, get your free shipping. And if you have any questions about CBD and what it can do for you, do not hesitate and speak to them. There's the number right there. And you can even email them if you're one of those kind of telephone adverse people. And they're happy to answer all your questions. Chris is a wealth of knowledge and loves talking to his customers who become friends, clients, you name it. All right, let me get the headgear on, and let's welcome Miss Watson, Dr. Watson. Hold on a second. Let me just redo this here. Give me 1 second. This always happens with my headset. So I have a gravity moment. There we go. I love this mic, by the way. It's a great mic. Audio Technica. All right. And we jack in the cans, as they say in the business. There they are. And bring her in. You got to deal with a little bit of the green screen effect tonight, but it's not too bad. All right, here she is. the one and only, coming from somewhere in an underground bunker near the Dallas-Fort Worth area, waiting for the end of the world. It's Darlena Watson. No, I'm just kidding. She wouldn't do that. Let's bring her around here. There she is, at least the top of her head.
My video wasn't quite on.
Man, you got the Leo hairdo going tonight, Darlena. I like it.
I didn't straighten it. I just took a shower and got ready and hair everywhere.
It's electric.
Thanks.
I like it. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm excited about tonight. I like to talk human design.
Well, that's why we have you on the show, is to do exactly that. And I've already prepped the people here who kind of know what we're going to do, which is where you're going to be doing a live read with our friend Michelle, who should be joining us in at about 10 minutes, and kind of get into what this all looks like and how it all fits together. And of course, what we're going to be what you're going to be giving people is a bit of a taste. It's a little taste. And of course, there's a lot more to chew on with a human design chart. And you could go very, very deep in this system. But if I could be a good opportunity for people to kind of get a sense as to how the system works and then how you work with the system. So looking forward to doing that. How are you doing in general?
I'm doing good. I really kind of like what you had in mind for this week, Robert, because what's fun for me, I have some similar gates with the lady that we're going to read for tonight.
Oh.
And one of the gates that we have in common is the ability to channel. And half the time, I don't even know what I'm going to say. And to be honest, it takes a lot of pressure off, because when it comes time to speak to people, I just kind of step out of the way and let what needs to be said come through me. And I don't have to feel worried about what I'm going to talk about, because it really is kind of given to me by way of what they need to hear. And that's helpful. So I'm kind of excited about this too, because I've not ever done this live or anything. I usually have people either to my home or we talk by phone, and it's kind of organic the way it comes into play. And this will be it's kind of one of those pass fail kind of things.
Well, I will say this: you better be good, or Michelle will chop your head off. No, I'm just kidding.
I don't think so. I've got her chart.
No, I'm just kidding. Well, good. I mean, so let me ask you a question.
Sure.
Do you think because you share the same gate, it will be an easier process for the two of you to communicate?
Well, we all share a lot of the same gates. It's the way, and this is kind of an interesting little thing that we can talk about while we're waiting. It's the way you put together a chart that matters, because you and I have similar gates. There's only 64 of them, so we're all going to share lots of them, and we all have all of the chart all of the time. But what we're looking at with human design is basically a soul curriculum, a life curriculum of what it is that we're here to more or less get the gist of, if we want to live the highest expression or our highest level of being here on this planet. And what's interesting about it is somebody can have the gate 12, which is in her sun sign. I also have the gate 12 in a different placement, but the gist of the gate 12 is the same. The way it plays out for her is going to be far different than the way it plays out for me. But given the rest of her chart, it's really cool to see the gate 12 in that placement. And then I look at the rest of the placements in the chart to figure out which way her life path will have gone. She's past her Chiron return. So I suspect a lot of this she has already figured out for herself over the years. But sometimes with the way we are conditioned to think about things, we don't necessarily know why we do what we do. Pardon me, I think I'm going to sneeze. It's part of what we're here to understand about ourselves, but we don't really know if it's something we picked up along the way or if it's hardwiring. And
Right.
human design, especially if you have an undefined identity center, can help really help you track whether it's something that's conditioned in you that you can let go of if it isn't really you, or whether or not it's part of your wiring. And then how do you use it? How do you best use your wiring for the best version of yourself?
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So what we're talking about in a lot of ways here is, and I may be simplifying it a bit, but genetics versus epigenetics. And
Yeah.
the epigenetics is what we learn, and some of it can be actually not bad, right? There can be good epigenetic influence in our lives, as well as learned and conditioned epigenetic influence. So, good.
I think nature versus nurture is a really cool idea. And I mean, I think as parents, as I was a public school teacher, we teach people the way we think. You know, we're not trying to do anybody wrong when we teach them what worked for us. But for people like myself with the fixed ajna, like we talked about last time, we can get stuck in that idea that what's right for me is right for you, my way or the highway. This worked for me, so it should work for you. And we raise our children with really good intentions of saying, you know, this is what you ought to do, but it could be completely and wholly wrong for them. And you may have 4 children, 5 children, and for each child, their design, their type could be different. And if their type is different from yours, you could really condition them right out of who they're supposed to be by trying to turn them into many versions of yourself. And you don't do it maliciously. We can only do what we know.
Right, right. And you know, human design really helped me understand my relationship with my son a lot better, because we're both 2-4 projectors.
Oh boy.
But I'm a splenic projector and he's an emotional projector. So when I realized that he had to work through things emotionally, it allowed me to give him a lot more latitude in terms of how he processed, you know, his life and information in general. So, so we share the 2-4 and we share the projector, but we come at it a lot differently. And that was a real, I mean, it wasn't a huge thing, but for me, it was just that little piece that gave me that little extra insight. It's like, this kid needs a space and he needs to come about things in his own way. So let's bring Michelle on and we can get into this here. We're going to have a 3-way now. All right, here we go. And I got her charts lined up and ready to go. So you just let me know which one you want to do first, but we're going to bring her on first.
For sure.
Let's see where she is. I lost her. Where'd she go? Come on back, Michelle. For some reason, I lost her. My phone with me. Yeah. Let me text her again. Let me just text her. All right, here she is again. All right. Good. All right. Sometimes you can push the wrong button and next thing you know, you're back in the void. Isn't that right, Jasper? Where's your girlfriend? Where's your new girlfriend? Let's unmute her. See if she. There she is. Okay, you're muted. You got to take your mic up. There you go. There you are, the doomer boomer. What's happening, Mishi?
Hi.
How you doing?
Good.
Good. Say hi to Darlena.
Hi, Darlena.
Hi, Michelle.
So, Michelle, have you ever been like on a live game? I mean, you're from LA. Have you been like on a live game show or anything?
I don't think so. I feel like maybe.
If there was somebody that would be on a live game show, I think it would be you. I think you have that somewhere in your past.
I
Did you?
won,
Go ahead.
I won a trivia contest.
Well, that's close.
It's like it was a game show kind of, but not on television.
Did you ever audition for any parts in LA? I never asked you that question.
No.
Right. Okay. All right. So if people aren't aware, I had Michelle on as a guest on my Friday show. Was it almost a year and a half ago or 2 years ago? Is that right?
A year.
A year ago. And we talked about her book, which is really, really good, and gets into sort of the cross section of her life in the LA punk scene and kind of skirting around the edges of celebrity. It's a very, very well-written book, tight, taut, concise, funny in places. And I'm really happy that you're helping me out with some stuff on the website. And we're going to get into this. So, Darlena, what do you want to do? Where do you want to go from here?
I want to start with the natal quantum mandala.
Okay.
I've really become a fan of the quantum mandala.
Okay. Let me put it up here, bring it up. And then while you're getting into it, maybe you can tell people what the difference is and why you're appreciating this model versus what the other chart that we'll look at.
Well, we'll switch to the other one later. Part of the reason I tried, first of all, Michelle, I have very, very, very limited knowledge of anything having to do with astrology. Astrology is a component of human design, but I don't know astrology lingo very well. So I was actually challenged in a good way by one of Robert's other clients that suggested it would be beneficial on Robert's show, particularly when you're talking with astrologers, if you could show the connection between human design and astrology. Because the neat thing about human design is it isn't separate from astrology. It's simply taking what you know of astrology and putting an even finer magnifier on it. So when we look at this very first component, which I had now added to all of my readings, Robert, because I have found it very helpful, we're able to show the correlation between human design and astrology. And it's so easy to see. It helps the astrology people realize that this is not a completely new thing. It's taking astrology and making it an even finer tool. And I do that by using the mandala. So we're going to start with that one because it's going to help Michelle and then people who are watching to understand the connection between the two.
Okay, let's roll. Where do you want to go from here, Darlena?
To that natal quantum mandala picture.
Okay, can you see it?
No.
It's on the screen share. It's right here.
For some reason, my screen is you, me, and Michelle. I don't suppose that matters because I have the natal quantum in front of me. So I'm not sure why I'm seeing things differently. Does it matter, Robert? Let's
No,
see.
if you tell me where to point the pointer, like right now, I've got Moon 11 in Sagittarius. I mean, I can go anywhere you want in this thing.
Okay.
So
Well,
you know.
I'm not sure why I'm not seeing it, but Michelle says she's seen it. I just see the three of us, but no matter. So Michelle, the first thing you'll notice when you're looking at that quantum mandala is that it has some different components to it that I want to explain to you. In the very center of it, you'll see the human design body graph. Do you see that? Yeah. In the very center? Yeah. Each one of those centers that go down the body graph, some are colored in and some are not. The ones that are colored in, like the green one, then the brown one, then you have the red one and two other brown ones, all those pie-shaped configurations to the coming out of that, radiating out like a sun, are colored to match the body graph, so you know which centers they're linked to. So like that only green one that you see, it's gate 11, and it actually comes off that ajna, the green center that's inside your body graph. So that just kind of gives you an idea of what those things are. As you radiate out from that, you'll notice the section with the trigrams, the hexagrams, I'm sorry. We're not going to touch on that, but we're going to go right on to the zodiac. You see all the zodiac symbols. Following that is a color wheel that has to do with human design. We're not going to touch on that, but then you immediately see the houses 1 through 12 in black and the houses 1 through 10 or 1 through 12 in red. Astrology deals with the black numbers. The numbers, when you look at your body graph, which I will email these to you after we get finished talking so that you can have actual copies of them. But those numbers that are in black on your body graph are associated with the numbers you would know about in astrology. But human design takes it even further and gives you a whole nother set of numbers and the houses and the zodiac for another aspect of your personality that astrology doesn't deal with. So you're given even more information about yourself. You're given the conscious information that astrology deals with, but then there's an unconscious aspect of yourself that others see in you that you don't really recognize within yourself. Those are generated 88 days before your birth in what scientists talk about being the time when your self, I don't know the word to call it, really has an electrical surge. They say that's when the soul enters the body, the people that believe that, but it's an electromagnetic charge of the brain. And that's where you get the numbers for your design side, the numbers in red when you get that body graph that I'm going to send you. When you look at the wheel, Robert and Michelle, some of the numbers that you see have a planetary symbol in black. Some have a planetary symbol in red. Do you see those on there, Robert?
Sure do,
Like
right here and right there. Yeah.
Yeah, if you notice, she has the 36 in her sun sign on the design side and the 12 in her sun sign on the personality side, which is what would be associated with astrology. So that's kind of how you read that wheel. You don't have to know it, other than I just wanted to point it out to you so you would understand what you were looking at when I email you this copy. I know you're familiar with astrology. So like if we start talking about your personality via astrology, we know that you are a Gemini. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When you look at the little pie-shaped portion down there that says Gemini, you see that the largest part of Gemini is in the 6th house, but then there's just a little snippet of Gemini that's in the 7th house. When we look at human design, there are usually 6, 5, and some change gates for each of the different zodiac symbols, Robert. So like they don't change. The numbers associated with Gemini are always the same numbers for everybody. But what we look at with Michelle, because of the degrees, which is an astrology term that I don't really understand, I just know it exists, we can pinpoint that her degrees in astrology associate with gate 12 specifically. So now we're looking at her mandala and we're seeing that she is a Gemini, that her portion of Gemini is in the 7th house. And of those gates that are associated with the 7th house, we have either the 12 or the 15. And because of the degrees to which she has in Gemini, it lines up with that gate 12. So we're able to focus even finer on what aspect of your personality is in Gemini in the 7th house. And we know gate 12 is visible on the mandala. Then we as human design practitioners would go into depth on what gate 12 is about. So that's kind of how this chart works out. We can look at Saturn. You know, I know Saturn is huge because that's where we feel pain, and pain in our life, the great teacher, Saturn. We can actually look on your design side and see that Saturn for you is in the gate 49 in Aquarius in the 2nd house. And that way we can tell you specifically what kind of things that are really going to plague you in your Saturn so that you are aware to be dotting your I's and crossing your T's basically with regards to Saturn. And we can do that for each of the things that are on that wheel, but we can do them not only for your personality, but also your unconscious aspects of yourself, which actually, as I'm looking at your chart, are really kind of cool. Another thing I want to point out just on this mandala before we go straight to the actual body graph is that I'm looking at all these different notes. You have a total, if you look at the charts, Robert, there's 14 numbers in the red, when you go down a body graph, and 14 numbers in the black when you go. So you have 28 different possibilities of personality flavoring if we're talking about how human design works at all. Michelle, for you, of the 28 possible, you only have 18 because you have so much duplication. That means concentration. So when we're looking at Michelle's chart, we know that she isn't going to focus on 28 different things. She's going to focus on 18 different things, and they're going to be significant for her. She has less to focus on, but the things she has to focus on are much more concentrated. That's the first thing I noticed when I was looking at that wheel. So like gate 40 over in Virgo, Robert, on that mandala, you can see 3 different symbols there. And she has 2 Plutos, one in, well, obviously one in design and one in personality. And then she also has Mars on the personality side in the black. So you have 3 different versions of gate 40 in your chart. So we would really want to pay attention to that for you. Gate 40 in human design is associated with what we call aloneness. You need a large amount of alone time, Michelle, and you probably already know that. Alone time in human design is actually for the purpose of rest and renewal. So Michelle takes in a lot of energy from others, and she needs time to integrate it, get it situated within herself. She needs to replenish, renew. And then when she is completing the time that she needs to integrate everything in her own world, she will get a cue that tells her, maybe I kind of miss people. Maybe I'm feeling a little bit lonely. And that's a cue for her that it's time to go back out and be around people again. And so we misunderstand loneliness a lot of the time. And especially when people are younger, Michelle, before they figure all this stuff out for themselves, and they have this mechanical loneliness can make them feel like no one gets them. They're just a fish out of water. They don't fit, and no one really understands them. But in fact, it's just a very important part of how you're wired, because if you didn't have that, so much of what's coming into you energetically would overwhelm you. So the alone time is really good. The other one that I really want to focus on, I'm sorry, I have a tendency to just go on and on, Michelle. Does any of that need any clarifying for you so far?
No.
Okay, sorry about that. I just get going. And I don't
Go.
stop. Okay.
Go.
The other one that I really want to point out to you that I see in a lot of people, and by no means do I want to say anything that's upsetting to you or irritating to you. I just want to point it out to you. You have the full channel that we call the 59-6. That energy is basically in slang called the channel of war. And what that is your energy walks into a room before you do. And so long before you even say hello to someone, your energy has already met with them. It's aura busting energy. So you have a tendency, unbeknownst to you, when you walk into a room, of completely taking over other people's energy. And they could bristle from that. And it could be confusing to you because you're like, I haven't even said anything to you. Why are you I feel like you're kind of coming at me a little bit here. But that's that channel of war. And so when we meet people with the 59-6, the full channel, so impactful are 59-6 people that we tell them it is really, really important that you be deliberate with your energy. Because if not, if you're just willy-nilly going around and not understanding that you have aura busting energy, people can really be affected by it. And something that you might say just off the cuff, because it was just a comment you made on a Tuesday, it meant nothing to you, can seriously impact them. Because believe it or not, with your configuration, when you talk, people are listening. You have a tremendous power with your words. You have gate 12 in your sun sign, and it comes off your defined throat. So when we look down in Gemini, we see the gate 12. It's in the 7th house. It comes off of that brown center associated with your throat. And basically that sign indicates to me that you have divine, super conscious connection to source, and you can get a read on somebody immediately. You really are able to figure people out very, very quickly. And what you say to them, they are truly listening to, because you have aura busting energy. Now, when you were younger, you may have noticed that you felt kind of a pressure to speak to people about a particular thing. And if you were finding that it was difficult for you to articulate, I have this one too. And there are some people that when I get around them, I say the dumbest things. I just say something that's so ridiculous and so not me that I don't even know why I said it. When you are feeling a pressure to speak and you're speaking against divine timing, you end up saying something really ridiculous. Have you ever noticed that with yourself?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And you question why you even said it. Well,
Yeah.
we have to train ourselves when we have gate 12 to make sure that when we are speaking, we're speaking in right timing. And gate 12 people, so strong are the words that they have to say that if you are speaking out of timing, like if you're giving somebody information that they aren't ready to hear, you'll end up bumbling around and you'll feel kind of shy about what you're saying. But when it's right timing and you are needing to speak words that somebody needs to hear for the purpose of changing their life, you will be very bold and courageous with your speech, and you'll have no trouble whatsoever articulating what you need to say. I was with somebody once, Robert, and just out of nowhere, my friend who had the full channel 59.6 aura busting energy says, "Hey, Darlena, she's a human design person. Tell this woman about herself." Well, I did not feel good about that, but I felt pressured to do it. And so I felt like a dancing bear, and I said a few things, but they were all stupid. And I did not make any kind of effect on that lady or impact on that lady because what I said was dumb. And I wished I hadn't spoken at all. I felt very shy about what I was saying. I didn't feel bold like I feel normally when I'm called to speak by invitation versus just responding off the cuff like that. So I definitely have been able to harness that energy for myself. And I tell you about the gate 12 because it is your sun sign, but because of that 59.6 and the need to be so deliberate with your speech, you want to really get that 12 so that when you are speaking, because you're like E.F. Hutton, when you speak, people listen. You want to be real careful with what you are saying. Your chart, the way it's configured, is meant to help other people redefine the stories that they tell themselves. You're what we call a universal truther. You have a 3-5 profile. 3-5 people, threes, and you've life experience behind you. Y'all are the ones that we've talked about before, Robert, in your show. We've talked about third line profiles. They're the ones that really want to experience. They don't want to be told what to do. They want to experience, and they don't want people telling them they're wrong, because third line profiles don't assign right or wrong to experiences. They want data for their files. And so as a universal truther at your age, you're going to be speaking to people about your experiences, the truth of your experiences, not something you read that somebody else experienced, but the way you're really going to mostly impact people and change their lives by what you say is when you relay stories to them that you personally have experienced. So you've been spending a lifetime gathering data for these files, because who wants to take advice or listen to somebody who's telling them something they haven't experienced for themselves? Like, if you're going to talk to somebody about a YouTube video you saw on pouring concrete, but you've never poured concrete yourself, you don't really have a very effective message to them that you would have if you had in fact poured concrete, and then they would really want to hear what you had to say because it's coming from a personal experience for you. The truth, according to Michelle, based on what Michelle has actively done. Have you noticed that when you talk to people about things you've actually experienced, they receive it more?
I'm a little bit like, I think Robert and I actually had a conversation about this one time. I feel reluctant in a way to do that. Like, I have the impulse to want to do that, but I feel like I'm being self-centered. If I want to, during a conversation, I want to impart my sort of experience and wisdom or whatever. And I just feel, like you said, based on stories from my experience, which I do have a lot of to draw from. And I feel like when I do that, I'm making it about me now. So I'm self-conscious. So I kind of pull it back. I try to pull it.
Would it help you to know that you don't have to do that anymore? Because we get conditioned into believing that who we are wired to be is wrong. Now, we have met people who, when they speak from their experience and it's all about them, it comes off as annoying. But for you, girl, that's what you're meant to do. And people, remember, with the gate 12, they want to hear what you have to say. And it's interesting in human design because human design has projectors, like Robert and I, we're both projector types, but it also has projected gates. And gate 12 is a projected gate, which means that people will ask you, they will inquire, and you will be invited to tell them something that helps them understand the world better based on your experiences. So you're invited to tell them, and they're all ears, Michelle. And then the other thing that's really cool about that is that you have the gate 13 twice. And when I look at the gate 13 in your life, and in your chart, I thought it was really interesting because I love the way, I call it God, source, whatever. I love the way we're designed because everything we need in order to fulfill our life purpose is right within our chart. So gate 13 assures me, and those are in your Venus placement and in your Saturn placement on your design side. So you are not conscious of these aspects of yourself. They're unconscious, but you draw people to you. You probably have a million stories of people that just want to tell you everything. And you're like, why are these people telling me this stuff? They tell you really, really personal things. Is that correct?
Yeah.
The reason they do that.
I was able to be a really good interviewer when I was a journalist because people would just be very comfortable, to tell me. I mean, I could get a lot out of people.
Yeah. Well, your design, the way your chart works is they just come up to you and they just tell you their whole life story. And they do that because they really are looking for the guidance, the truth, according to Michelle. So they give you all this information really unknowingly because it's energetic. They don't know why they tell you everything they tell you, but they do so for the purpose of you being able to tell them what they need to do in their own lives. What's cool about human design is you have to walk the talk. So before we can do what we're called to do as our life purpose, we have to learn it for ourselves. And that's where being a third line profile comes in handy for you because you've spent a lifetime learning all the things that people seriously want to know. So with that aura busting energy, you're able to then tell them and have a huge impact on their life because you're able to know their story because they've already told you, and you help them break these old patterns by saying, well, have you thought of this? And have you thought of that? And, if you would try this, things would go differently for you. And you are divinely inspired. We've already figured that out just by listening to you and Robert talk. You have ideas out the wazoo. You have so many ideas all the time, divinely inspired ideas, so many that over the course of your life, you've had times when you don't know, what am I supposed to do with all these ideas? Some are for you and some are meant to give away. When we look at your sun sign on the design portion of your chart, the part that astrology doesn't look at, your sun sign is gate 36 in, let's see, Robert, you may have to help
Pisces. In Pisces.
It's in Pisces, but it's in the first house. And that first house, according to my notes, Robert, is associated with your self-image.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And your self-awareness and learning about you. So if you're going to be talking to people about your experiences and helping them to grow as individuals based on what you know. That's your sun sign in your design side. Also on your design side, you've got your Saturn in, let's see, your Saturn on your design side is gate 13.
13? Oh, 13.
Yeah, which is in Aquarius in the gate 12. That's okay, let me backtrack a little bit. In human design, and I know it's different, Robert, just from talking with Donna, I'm not positive about astrology and how Saturn works, but in human design, Saturn is one of your pain placements. And we say that whatever is in your pain placement, while it's very heightened around age 28 and 56, it builds and builds and builds and builds until it crescendos during your Saturn return, and then it begins to taper off. So gate 13 is in your Saturn sign on the design side. So it's a pain thing for you, which means you've had to spend a lifetime trying to understand these patterned stories that people want to tell you, where they have lower narratives. They come to you with their problems. They aren't really coming to you with their success stories so much as they are coming to talk to you about things going wrong in their life. And you really can't stop it. It's part of your pain placement, which means it kind of aggravated you at a younger age. And then you learn to work with it. And when you started working with it, you were able to see that, okay, this is going to happen. I can't stop it. They're going to come. They're going to tell me their stories. And I'm going to help them elevate these stories that they have that are rooted in pain by telling them what seems perfectly natural for you. You know, you're like, why can't you see this? Well, they can't see it because they need someone to guide them, as projectors do. You're not a projector by type, but you have so many projected and teaching gates that they are coming to you with these stories because they want you to tell them from your experience what they ought to do. And so with that gate 12 in your sun sign on the personality side, if you withhold because you've been conditioned to believe that you're just talking about yourself, there's Michelle talking about herself, that's what they want you to do, or they wouldn't have invited you to tell them what they need to do to fix their lives. So when we look at those pain placements, we can see that there are things that have caused you to doubt yourself. And also when I look at your chart, I don't know religiously what your background might have been over the years, but you know how in church, if you're a doubting Thomas, people really frown on that.
Yeah.
You have gate 63 multiple times in your chart, 3 times to be exact. So you are like a little researcher girl. you that is who you are. You are a doubter, but you are a doubter for the purpose of finding a better way. That's who you are. That's what you do. You take life and you doubt it all for the purpose of figuring out if there's a better way to do things. That's what experiencers do. It's the first gate in logic circuitry. So anything that comes along to you, you look at it and you go, maybe that's true. Maybe it's not. Maybe it could be better. Maybe it would be worse. I don't know. And I won't know until I figure it out through experimentation. So in church settings, people who are doubting Thomases are considered to not be faithful. They won't just go willy-nilly through life, accepting what's been told to them. You're not able to do that. You don't accept anything at face value. You're one of those people that says, no way, I'm going to figure it out for myself. And probably right now you're going, yeah, maybe Darlena, I'll work with this a little bit and see for myself. Because you're not the kind that takes anything in without making sure for yourself. You need it to be proven over time. Does that sound like you?
Well, yeah, but I just want to say, when you're telling me these things, I feel like the walls are closing in. Like it feels like a prison sentence to me almost.
Oh, wow. You know, that's interesting. Could you tell me why it feels like a prison sentence? Maybe I can help you with that.
Because these are things that I don't necessarily enjoy about my life experience at this point. Like maybe I used to, but I'm at a weird like age, and like I find myself wanting to be something else, or, break free of these I can see like patterns or something that are very visible to me all the time. And so just the patterns in my own life and relationships and experiences and everything, like right now I want to break them. That's how I feel.
Absolutely.
And so the chart feels like this, and you can tell me if this is true, and I hope it's not, that the chart feels like this destined, etched in stone kind of thing. And like, I need to learn to work with it when now I feel like I want to reject it kind of.
Yeah. Well, before you came on, Robert and I were talking about how our charts are our soul curriculum. So everything I've told you up to this point leads to, these are the things that I've been telling you are the things that you've experienced through your life that are bothersome. So I'm not surprised that you feel like the walls are closing in, and I'm not surprised at your age that you're ready to move on from all that, because what we have in our chart is we have things in the lower expression and things in the higher expression. And when I look at the totality of your chart, where you're going in the high expression is super cool, but we don't ever start out at the high expression of our gate. It's over the course of our lifetime that we elevate all these things to the higher expression. So in the past, you doubted things. And what's really interesting about that is people tell you you shouldn't do it. And what we resist persists. And so as you begin to elevate the gate of doubt from I doubt everything to that's right, I doubt everything, you flip it to a positive, and then it becomes something that you're grateful for in your chart. When we look at the chart, when we first start human design, we feel very limited by it. In fact, when I started human design, I railed for quite some time. I thought it was stupid. I didn't appreciate my design. I wanted a different design. I went back and forth with God saying, no, thank you. Keep your stupid design. And it did me no good. And so finally, I had to wave the white flag that said, fine, fine, fine. If this is going to be my design, let me work with it, not against it. And then resistance starts to fail. And then the things that you consider limitations become expansion, because you start working with it and not against it. And that's what human design specialists do. They explain to you what's gone on through the course of your life, and then they tell you where to take it. Now that you understand what it's done, where can it go? And it becomes your possibilities. And when I look at your incarnation cross, I'm astounded by it. In fact, I'm not jealous, because I don't get jealous anymore by designs, but I wish I would have had a cool design like this. I'm like a cheerleader, and so for the longest time, I was like,
What's your incarnation cross?
My incarnation cross is, hold on, let me find my paper. It's around here somewhere.
Can I go to her body graph now?
Sure. Okay, mine is called the left angle cross of distraction, which means I like to distract myself so that I don't have to do God's work, which makes sense if you're going to be a pouty little baby that says no thank you when you're given your chart, until you finally lean into it instead of away from it. Hers is a super cool incarnation cross called the right angle cross of Eden 2. And I mean, who wouldn't want a great cross like that? And so in her incarnation cross, everything that's gone on in your life up to this point, Michelle, has led you to be able to fulfill your incarnation cross in the high expression. And what we find with you is that it's absolutely necessary that you not go into lower vibrational thinking, because you have aura busting energy, and because you're such a powerful individual, you have to stay at high frequency, or you end up creating something you didn't want to create in the first place, or you end up not leading, that's not, everybody has free will, but you end up, your energy walks in the room and kind of knocks people over instead of being peaceful with others, because your energy in the low expression is energy of war. It's like, you want to fight me? You walk in, and before you've even spoken, you've challenged everybody in the room. When you start to harness that energy and understand that your energy does that, you become a conscious creator. And so then your energy becomes that of penetrating others for the purpose of them being able to, gosh, I hate to put it this way, but they kind of lay their troubles at your feet. And for most of your life, you have not wanted that part where they just come up and tell you all their troubles like you're supposed to fix them. Well,
I mean, I just want to say, I think that this is revealing a lot to me, because it makes me understand what I have, like a lot of walls, you know, I have a lot of walls, and, you know, I kind of understand a little bit better now. Like I feel,
third
you know,
line profiles. Oh, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. Third line profiles, and you are a 3-5. And should you and I ever have a personal reading where we're not trying to just whiz through this, I can explain this at a much greater depth. But third line profiles are the most conditioned of all. And it's a very painful profile to be a third line, because people can make you feel like you're all wrong. And so you tend to build up walls and hide, especially when you have the full channel 59-6, because girl, no matter what you do, people blame you for it. They're at war with you and you had nothing to do with it. So you probably have a lifetime of stories where you were wrongly assigned blame for things you did not do. And that's painful. And so who wouldn't hide? But when we start to reveal to you how you use that stuff to the good, now that you're getting into that age where people truly will listen to you, because who's listening to a 20-year-old? You know, there's wisdom that comes with age. So you're getting to the point where all these experiences that you have turned you into a powerhouse. And we explain, when we have more time together, and we're speaking privately, how you use this stuff to your advantage in order to not only kind of marry for yourself that there's absolutely nothing wrong with you. You're good. You've got a great profile. And so all these years that people have been telling you you're a know-it-all, you're kind of a bully, or you're, you know, you walk into the room and I feel like you're angry at me. You know, people have said all kinds of things to you over the years. Good grief. Why do you have to do everything the hard way? Why are you having all these experiences? Why do you keep wanting to doubt everything and experiment as to why can't you just take my word for it, Michelle, especially parents? I bet you drove your parents batty because they're afraid you'll die. You know, they don't want you to die, and you're out there living like Evel Knievel, experiencing everything, unless you go the opposite direction. Some third line profiles are so terrified of disappointing others that they experience nothing. They're scared to. And then they're very sad and depressed because their entire being wants to experience, but they don't want to disappoint anyone. So it goes one of two ways for third line profiles. But the addition of the fifth, you are a 3-5. And this is, I think we spoke about this briefly a couple of weeks ago, Robert. If you are a fifth line profile, if you do your human design chart and you come up with a 5, either at the beginning or at the end, do yourself a favor, whether it's me or someone else, and contact a human design reader, because fifth line profiles, they have a difficult time. People, you have a heaping helping of this, in other words. So not only are you a fifth line profile, you're a 59-6 with an open identity, a third line profile. People come up and tell you their stories. You channel wisdom through your voice and through what you hear and your open throat. You've got that E.F. Hutton thing going on where when you speak, people listen. All of that's very painful if people reject you or bristle at you. Well, fifth line profiles, they have the hardest time of all, because in addition to all that, you are a mirror, and people walk up to you, and if they are in muck in their own life with their problems that they're bringing to you, and you try to help them, they will assign that onto you. And they will accuse you of doing what it is they do. So, you know, you're just sitting there.
Yeah. Go
ahead.
That's the scapegoat thing that you were just talking about.
Absolutely. You've done nothing. And somebody who is, remember, Robert, we were talking about how people will call, I had a person tell me I was a whiny little princess bitch. And I thought, really? I'm not the whiny little princess bitch. The person who said that to me was the whiny little princess bitch. So what happens, Michelle, is people will come up to you and tell you that you're something that you're not. And you have an open identity center. And so for a little while, you actually entertain that notion. And with triple gate 63 in your chart, you sit there and you think to yourself, maybe I am. Maybe I am not what I think I am. You doubt yourself, not just data. In the low expression of the gate 63, you have a lifetime history of not being certain about Michelle. And that's not what the gate 63 is about. So we teach people with triple gate 63s how to not use doubt in a way that's detrimental. You use doubt to lead you into experimentation for the purpose of proving theories over time. You don't ever use doubt against yourself. And when you're trained for that, every time you start to doubt yourself, you go, no, that's not what this is for in my chart. It's our soul curriculum. People who don't have gate 63 don't really struggle with doubt. They take things at face value. They don't need to experiment with it. I didn't create your chart, of course. I'm just reading it. And so you have to be like me and just wave the white flag and go, fine. Thanks a lot. But so your chart's your chart.
So Darlene, I just want to chime in on something here, which it may or may not apply to human design and what you're talking about. But on the design side, she has her sun in Pisces on the ascendant, and that is scapegoat energy. That is scapegoat energy. So that may not be happening for you on the personality side, but deep down inside, you might be having that kind of reflection or that kind of response, either intuitively or even from a kind of I'm just riffing a bit here because I'm noticing what you're talking about on the scapegoat side, and there it is on the design side with sun on Pisces, sun in the ascendant in Pisces.
Robert, you're exactly right. If you notice in her sun sign, and remember that's where we get our profiles, she is a 36.5. That 0.5 is very, very much scapegoat energy. And that's where that fifth line in her profile comes from. She gets the 3 in her profile from the personality side and the 5 from the design side. So when people look at Michelle, or any 5 for that matter, I say it like this. I'm a storyteller too, Michelle. We both have gate 56, which means we use stories to illustrate what we're trying to teach people. So if you think about a fifth line profile, think of it like this. If you are a healthy fifth line profile and you are looking out into the world, you're looking out through what we call a projection field. So imagine yourself holding a bottle of water and you're looking through this bottle of water, and hopefully it's Evian or some really clear water so that you can see without distortion at the people around you. You are looking at them and they are looking at you. And so what they see in you doesn't have anything to do with the bottle you're looking through. It has to do with the bottle they're looking through. So if you meet someone who is also out trying to do the work of making themselves a better person, they may be looking back at you through a bottle of Evian and everything's cool. Where you get scapegoat energy is when the person that's looking into the mirror, the person that's looking at Michelle through the projection field is holding up a Dr. Pepper. They can't see you. They can't see anything. So they assign on to Michelle things that are not hers. And she walks away going, what the heck? Because she doesn't have a defined identity. So it's left her all these years trying to figure out it's baffling. You get accused of things that you didn't do. You don't know why they're saying you did it, but they believe it wholeheartedly. But they are looking at themselves and what needs to be healed within them. So if they're calling you a bully or Hitler, I was once described as being akin to Hitler. And I thought, that just doesn't seem like me. But the person who said it to me kind of is. So what they are seeing in you as a mirror is what needs to be healed in them. But try telling that to somebody. They don't take it very well.
Hitler was kind to animals. Come on. That's a nice trait.
I don't think that's what she was referring to, though.
I'm looking through a very clear sort of vision of water here to some extent. So Michelle, what do you think? Is this Is this hitting with you? I mean, it feels like it kind of is, and you're having a bit of an interesting reaction, a homeopathic response. Let's call it that way.
Okay. What do you mean by that?
Homeopathic. It's like you take something in. It's like, it's like I'm not sure. The body's not sure. It's kind of mimicking the thing that it's supposed to eventually eradicate, but then the body accepts it and integrates it. That's a homeopathic response.
Well, it's so big.
Yes.
I have a million questions right now, especially when you relate astrology to it, or, and like transits and stuff. And then, like I already knew emotional generator, some of these things, but this is like way deeper. And, sorry, I have to have this lozenge. What I'm tripping on, or what I feel really focused on, is the energy. What did you call it? I'm trying to find it in my notes, but like bumping in. What was it?
The energy where you walk into a room and you penetrate others.
Yeah, you called it something.
Or busting.
Yeah, aura busting. That's really, like, of the whole thing, that's been really sticking with me. And I just keep wondering, like, I can really visualize it, and it makes a lot of sense in my life, for my life too. Like, all these things that you've said are so true, and it does make me feel better to know that it is the way it's supposed to be, or whatever, this thing where people, I thought it was like, not to be in my ego or something, but I thought it was more of a charisma type of thing.
It's definitely magnetic. It's very magnetic.
But I have noticed that what you said, where I'll go in a room, especially this happened to me in the workplace a lot, but where I go into a room and people regard, like, they misunderstand. I'm very misunderstood. They think that I'm being aggressive. Like, I have to tone myself down a lot for people to not perceive me as aggressive. And that kind of sucks. Like, I'm always having to put myself in check. So I guess
you have to be very deliberate, is what you're saying. You have to be very deliberate, or people misunderstand you. And it does stink, but it is what it is.
So can I chime in here just for a second, real quick? Is that okay?
Oh, yeah.
So I think everything is about context, right? So if you're let's see, Steve Jobs, and you come in and you're aggressive, you're Steve Jobs, right? And there's a fit, right? There's a weird fit because of the context. And the challenge is that if you come into a situation with big energy, and you are, and this is no slight or knock to you, but if you're at somewhere between mid to lower level in terms of the hierarchy, that energy is going to be threatening, right? But if you're higher on the pyramid back here, right, now it's got a place. Now it's got a place where all of a sudden, when you say something, let's say you're in a movie set and you're a director, and you say, move that camera over here and move it now, right? People are going to listen to you. So I think you
already have to have authority established, you're saying?
I just think you have to have the right context, right? If you come in,
I get it. Yeah, I get it.
If you come in and you're in a position where you're maybe lower theoretically than the volume of your voice can handle, then all of a sudden it becomes an issue, right? Yeah. But if you're somewhere higher up there, then it's not as much of an issue. It's part of what somebody who has authority would do or say, right? So then the question is, and maybe I'll throw this back to you, Darlena. The question is, and maybe this gets into the design side of things, is that once you accept that, do you then naturally begin to move up the hierarchy because you've accepted that, right? And therefore you're not putting yourself in positions that would be secondary or tertiary roles where your voice would then be considered to be shrill, upsetting, controlling, and then you notice that you have to tamper it down and you get nowhere, right? Because your voice is being limited, right? It's in a very small container. So I think a lot of it has to do with context. And that if you're higher on that pyramid, all of a sudden people step back and listen to you and go, yeah, she's right. Or, yeah, I have to do this now. Am I right about that, Darlena? Does that make sense?
What you're saying makes sense, but what you're saying makes sense. To further illustrate what you're saying, this energy is in any gate in human design. There's the low expression and the high expression, but the way the 59-6, the gate of war, switches for Michelle when she elevates that energy. In the younger years, it was a very warring energy because you were unfamiliar with what it is, which was what Robert's saying. So, you could have been if you want to use the Steve Jobs example, you could have been something of a bully that demands that this be done. And it's ineffective because, yeah, you may get your way, but no one likes you. So they're not listening to you. You're not effective at all. But as you age and as you become deliberate with that energy, knowing that people hear you, really, you're like E.F. Hutton. They're truly listening. You begin to recognize the power of who you are, and you come from a higher elevation of energy, and the gate in elevation becomes the gate of peace. And that's what I was saying to you about how beautiful human design is, because when you elevate that and you're very deliberate with what you're saying, and you're not just, how you meet people who have the habit of saying, well, I just do what I do. Well, you really can't if you have aura busting energy, because if you go around just doing what you do willy-nilly, you're creating things that you didn't really mean to create. When you become very deliberate and understand that you are more powerful than you think you are, and you bust into people's aura, then you become an agent of peace, and you use that gate deliberately, because your life purpose is one of helping people. You want to have a big impact. Is that true? You want to change people for the better, I'm assuming.
I like to help people, yeah,
Exactly.
but it's not like I have this drive. It's not like for myself necessarily. I just naturally always want to help people, but yeah, it's not like I'm trying to leave a legacy or something.
No. But what you're looking for is an impact on people, according to your chart. You are wanting to help others.
I like being like a healing force,
So when I look at your incarnation cross, your life purpose, what we started the conversation to say, that you are meant to use all the aspects of your chart to reach a certain purpose in life. Yours, may I read this, Robert? Would that be boring?
Sure, no.
What you're meant to do, Michelle, your right angle cross of Eden uses those top 4 gates: preparation and making sure you're not leaping into chaos, big ideas, big ideas, lots of divine inspiration. Gate 6, which says I impact others, and gate 12, which says when I speak deliberately, I create beauty in this world. Okay, I can create miracles for myself and others with my energy if I use my energy correctly. So you are meant to explore, experiment with, and experience. That makes perfect sense for a third line profile. Explore, experiment with, and experience the pursuit of pure inspiration. All these ideas that flood you, all this inspiration, it's a gift to you, and it's meant to be used. You have an opportunity to have a huge impact on others by the way you implement and share all these ideas that you get. Those ideas can help shatter the patterns of the past that people stay stuck in. They come to you with their patterns that they're stuck in because you yourself said, I recognize patterns. And you're able to go, wait a minute, do you see this pattern that you're stuck in? And you help them shatter those patterns. And then you, starting with yourself, which you've already done over the course of your lifetime, you stretch the edges of the human story. And I think that's beautiful. You share with them things that they would have never come up with. You help them with all those ideas and inspirations to think bigger thoughts for themselves. Instead of warring with them, you share from a place of peace. You penetrate them with your aura busting energy and help them see beyond the limitations they've placed on themselves. You doubt the limitations that they have placed on themselves. You don't doubt yourself and you don't doubt them. You doubt the limitations. And you say to them, you know what? I don't think so. I think you're more than that. And because they truly believe and trust the truth of what you're saying to them, they then go, maybe I am more than I give myself credit for being. You can truly impact others with your speech. You share the truth so that they can do the same. You create miracles when you consciously harness the fulfillment of the unexpected. You have so many unexpected things that happen to you because you're willing to live outside the box. When you get to the higher elevation of your chart, you begin to see that, yeah, I am different. And I do live outside the box. And I'm not here to be meek and mild. And I am here to share my experiences so that you guys can do the same. But what kind of leader would you be if you were saying, no, stay small, don't be brave, don't try new things. And Lord knows if you've got an idea, don't go for it. You're out there going, go for it, and you're trying to help others.
So Darlena, I found a website called loveyourhumandesign.com. Do you know this website at all? So I go here from time to time when I want to look up somebody's right angle cross or left angle cross or juxtaposition. And you may not be able to see it, but the paragraph here for the right angle cross of Eden 2 is your cross has the energy to drive, to go and explore the world. But it really isn't just about you. This is the energy that compels you to bring others along on your exploration, which is what you're saying. This is the force that led us out of the Garden of Eden. This energy also has ties to art and bringing expression into form. This cross can go through a period of sadness as there was a lot in the world that is not Eden-like. But fear not, the drive to lead or share. Your sense of exploration will come through because that is what you were here to do. And I think that is a pretty good summation of what you were saying, actually.
Yeah. And when you look at the remainder of the chart, because as I said, there is nothing in the chart that isn't used for the purpose of fulfilling the incarnation cross. So what you were saying, Robert, when you have aura busting energy, it makes absolute sense that she would have the gate 43 times because that's extremely painful. She needs rest and time to renew her spirit because she takes a lot of energetic. I don't know if you take it in real life, Michelle, but you get a lot of energetic blowback and scapegoating, as we mentioned. So you need lots of alone time to kind of retreat and lick your wounds and prop yourself back up so that you're ready to go again. Because sometimes with that kind of energy that you have, people can resist it, so that's why it's so important with the gate 12 as your sun sign on the conscious side to only speak to people who are willing to hear. That's why it's a projected gate. Because if you go around trying to tell somebody something they're not willing to listen to, number one, you waste your time and disappoint yourself. And then you're depleted because I always end up back at scriptural references, but you cast your pearls before swine.
Let me just tell you that's my mantra for this year. Don't do that.
Don't do it. You will know from your voice box. If you start to speak to somebody, use that as your cue. If you start to bumble and you're like stumbling and you know yourself to be a good speaker, you're not meant to talk to that person. Don't even bother. Use that as your cue. But if you feel like yeah, I'm an articulate person. I have a defined throat. I have no trouble speaking. If it's coming out correctly and you're saying what you meant to say, then the timing probably was right. You are a generator, which means anytime you push versus waiting for something to respond to, then it's not going to go well for you. In human design, we say that we meet resistance when we work against our design. And it's painful. So you just kind of learn over time to wave the white flag, go by your design, and things fall into place effortlessly. Then those things that used to feel like limitations to you become your rudder. Instead, they help guide you in your life and you work through effortlessly. It changes everything.
It's still kind of sad. I just want to say.
I know.
Knowing that that's kind of a lonely life. It's not an easy relationship kind of a deal or a partnership thing, you know.
I understand that completely.
Yeah.
As a 5 myself, I find that I don't have a lot of really deep connections because inevitably people don't, over time, they don't like me. They end up assigning on to me something that isn't really mine. I'm wounded by it over the course of my life, and I really don't put myself out there all that much because I know what's going to happen. Give them a month, a year, whatever, they'll find some reason to dislike me. That's that fifth line energy. They'll say I'm Hitler, or they'll say I'm something else. A lot of fifth line energy people feel what you're feeling. It is painful, and you have an open identity, Michelle. I would be happy to talk to you further about your design to help you kind of integrate all this stuff, because what you'll find is complete and total vindication for who you are, and all these things that have caused you pain, you suddenly realize are valid, and you have permission to feel those things, and you weren't making it up, and it is true, and you can feel empowered by who you are instead of feeling like, geez, what am I supposed to do with this? It actually helps you. I recognize now, even though I've spent a lot of my life lonely, I recognize now that it's the loneliness that has propelled me.
I mean, let's just cut to the chase. It is as long as Michelle accepts her inner Hitler she-bitch, she'll be okay.
Yes.
Right? This is really what you're saying.
Don't judge yourself.
No,
you know?
because
Yeah.
you know, I just want to say that this whole conversation for me is really bringing me to the South Node, North Node thing, you know, and I feel like a lot of this is working toward my North Node. I know that you don't know what I'm talking about, probably, Darlena.
I know what you're talking about by design,
Okay,
not by astrology.
So yeah, that's all. I just think it's interesting. There's the way they overlap. And does that make sense, Robert? That it feels like that?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. And if we had more time, we could explore where the two would overlap. But unfortunately, we don't.
I'm sorry.
But that's okay. I mean, this has been a great introduction into human design, and I think Darlena hit it out of the park with your chart. And
fascinating.
And I brought Darlena on tonight specifically to show what she could do in kind of an introductory model to human design. And of course, there's layers and levels that are much deeper than even what we're beginning to get to with you right now. So thanks for being here, and I know you're a really private person too. So for you to do this on video like this is really, really cool. So I want to thank you for that as well.
I do feel naked.
I know. So this was the three of you, right? Coming out to explore and say, let's go check this out. Let's go see what this is all about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You have any other questions for Darlena?
Great.
Do you have any other questions for Darlena before we say goodnight?
No, I'm sure, Robert, I can get your info if I want to get in touch. And I just thank you for your insight and your expertise.
Cool.
Michelle, there's so much more. I hope I haven't scared you off by telling you the lower aspects of your chart. When you were referring to the North and South node, it's a little different in human design. In human design, you switch from your South nodes to your North nodes, which is why I was shaking my head as you elevate your energy. And in your South node, I see the gate of limitation. And it's interesting because you know how you were saying, I don't feel so limited by who I am anymore, but your gate of limitation switches from the South node to the North node. And in the North node, we see the empowerment of the gate 56 that turns you from someone who feels limited by your design and these energies that you have that can help change others. And it's unfortunate that you are about others, but you are, and there's nothing we can do about that. You're not just about yourself, you're both. And so as you switch from that limiting of the 60 into the high expression of the 56, you're going to really get behind this, and it won't feel so painful for you anymore. Human design is not your prison, it's your parole.
All right.
Awesome.
Well said. Okay, Michelle, thanks for being
Bye.
here. You and I'll be in
Bye.
touch later, okay?
Bye-bye.
Bye now. All right. That was Mishi, the doomer boomer, and also the email goddess. So, hey, Darlena, that was awesome. Thanks for doing that.
Sure. I really enjoyed it. And gosh, I'm kind of, I have the undefined identity. So after we disconnect, I'll be in the other room going, oh no. Study on this as to whether or not I worried her,
No, I think what I know about Michelle is that, as the kids say, she likes to keep it real. And yeah, I mean, I think you gave her stuff that's real, right? So that, to me, automatically, that would be kind of a buy-in when I would be hearing you speak. To me, and this is I'm not dissing human design or propping up astrology, but there is the real fundamental difference between the two. And the fundamental difference between the two, and it comes out when you do go in, not you specifically, but when people go into human design and say, this is it. These are your parameters, and that you accept your parameters. And then once you accept your parameters, you'll find freedom and limitation, which is a very interesting process. The difference with astrology is that in astrology, there's the evolutionary aspect of the chart. And so we go through transits and we get to try on new things. We go through the progressed chart and we take on new parts of our identity through the progressed chart. And so I think both of them have their purpose. And I think they both have their mechanisms that are, I think, useful for understanding the self. And it all kind of meets together at some point, right? I think there is a meeting point somewhere between the two. But I can understand where somebody would say, well, just for me personally, when I first read that I was a 2-4 and that I had to wait for an invitation, I was like, yeah, fuck this, right? I want to, start something on my own and do things on my own. But once I understood that, like it was very empowering for me to understand that, so that if I had the right invitation, that I knew that I could step through that invitation and make it count. And I didn't have to expend a lot of other energy to try to do other things that would not get me to where I needed to go. So that part was really, really useful for me with the human design piece. So I like to play synthesis. I like to work between both those worlds. And I know that you're starting to learn more about astrology as well, so that you can, speak that language as far as human design goes too.
what I want to say back to you is I think we're always more comfortable with what we started with, like you're an astrologer and I'm a human design person. And while I can appreciate astrology, I really come at it from the human design point of view. And while you can appreciate human design, you're always going to be first and foremost an astrologer. But what I would say as a rebuttal to what you were saying about transits, human design does the very same thing, because human design is astrology. And you're trying on these different garments, these different things that you were talking about through the progression of the heavens, like in astrology, the stars. And each time a gate is transited, you're given the opportunity to work with the gate 12 as it transits through gate 12. And you can see where gate 12 is, astrologically speaking, Robert. So when you learn what gate 12 is, when it's going through that, and we said it was in Gemini. So whenever that happens, astrologically speaking, you are trying on the garment of gate 12. Then it moves out of gate 12 because it's flowing counterclockwise into the gate 15. You are now having access to the energy of the 15, exactly as it rotates around the zodiac. So you're doing the very same thing in human design. When we talk about the ones that you have highlighted, you have access to that energy all the time. It's defined when it's on center. But if you are off of a defined center, or if that pie-shaped thing has a planet in it, Robert, but it's not colored in, you don't have access to that energy unless it's transiting. So when it's transiting, you're like, oh, wow, this is bothering me. It's the same thing as it is astrology. There is no separation of it. It's just the lingo that is separate, but the process is the exact same.
Right. Okay, good. Well, you and I will discuss more of that on the on the private side of things, and
Sure.
hopefully we can learn a little bit from each other here.
I hope so too.
Yeah. So thank you. This has been great tonight, and we really enjoyed your presence. I think you did a fantastic job breaking down Michelle's chart, and people can find you at darlenawatson.com, right?
Correct. And email and phone number, if you want to put that in the comments. I'm very, very thrilled to read for anybody. I have read for quite a few of your people, and I love it so much, and I'm so passionate about it. And anybody who wants to know more about who they are and how to really live the best version of themselves can go further. And I'm happy to be a part of that.
That's awesome. All right, Darlena, thanks again. Have yourself a great Sunday. Say hi to Donna for me. I'm sure she's watching. And until next time, okay?
Thank you so much. Bye, everybody.
All right. That is the great Darlena Watson. What a fantastic job she did on breaking down Michelle's chart. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to get up here for a minute. I'm going to adjust the lighting, and I'm probably going to get something to drink here, and you guys may want to get up and stretch around for a little bit. I'm trying to figure out, it's not going to take me very long, but I'm trying to figure out what I could play just to buy the time here a little bit that won't get me in trouble with the frickin' censors here. Let me see if I can do this. How about let's do this. Let's do a little silent movie clip. Not the movie Silent Movie, but let's see if we can do a little silent movie clip. That would be an interesting clip. Silent movie, how about, let's do this. How long is this? It's 12 minutes. 12 minutes. This is funny. There's a YouTube video, 10 hours of absolute silence. That's funny as hell. Okay, let's do this. We're going to go, here, let's do this. We'll do a little bit of a break here. Let me readjust the light. Let me do this. Dim the, turn the volume down. And let's go into here. All right, so I'm going to readjust the light. I'm going to get something to drink. You can do the same thing. come back for part 2 of the show. We're going to get into Aries season and Trump on Tuesday, the equinox, Aries personalities, looking back at Mars and Aries during COVID, the warm up for the true node, and we'll probably be here for another couple hours. So get some snacks, use the restroom, come on back, and let's get into a little, I don't know what the hell this thing is. I think I'll watch a little bit. Over the Moon. All right. And Out of This World. There we go. I'll see you in about 2 or 3 minutes. There we go. There's some nice aliens, nice alien friends. Here we go. All right, how's this weird movie? It's only for intermission purposes only. We got a little Saturn there. Look at that. We've got this is so weird. There it is, the place of pain. And then we have our female bombers making a direct approach to Saturn. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Time, space. There's the gateway. Penetrating into a new world. Look at that. Saturn's not so bad after all, is it? Not so bad after all. They're thrilled. Now what? Now what do we do? I have no idea what this is about. It was just there for time. All right, so we're back. We are back. There we go. All right, so we're going to get into part 2 of the show. Thanks for hanging around once again. Thanks for Darlena Watson. You want to get in touch with her. I'll have all that info in the show notes when we're done. So we are now in, well, we're not quite, but we're almost in Aries season. The astrological new year is almost upon us as we filter through the sort of the final currents of Pisces. And boy, what a time we have ahead of us. I mean, Tuesday, Trump is about to be arrested. Am I right? That's what the news is, supposedly. And what are the charges going to be about? I mean, I guess it has something to do with Stormy Daniels and paying Stormy Daniels money prior to the election. And it's not it's not that big of a deal, right? I mean, it's not that big of a deal, just like everything else that's happened supposedly with Trump after the election, going all the way back to the storming the gates of Mar-a-Lago and taking all those really important documents. Yeah, nothing's happened with that. Everything that Trump has been accused of, impeached twice. Has there ever been another president impeached twice? I don't know, but he's been impeached twice. I guess once when he wasn't even in office. Nothing ever sticks, right? Hence the name Teflon Don. Nothing ever really sticks to him. So is that part and parcel of his chart? Is that part and parcel of the fact that we're watching a game being played before our very eyes, and there are characters in the game, and he's one of the characters? He's a meta character. And you know, what are they attempting to do in terms of the game, right? And looking at it from the larger perspective, as we're about to move into Pluto in Aquarius, and the talk of new cities that are going to be free, and they're going to tear down all those ugly buildings, and we're going to have flying cars in those free cities on all this federal land that's not being used. So we're basically talking Nevada, Arizona, Utah, areas like that. And we're coming into Pluto in Aquarius very shortly here, very, very soon. So some major changes are on the horizon. We have the change of the astrological new year. That's happening. We have Pluto, the first ingress into Aquarius, and we have Saturn just minted in Pisces. So there's a lot going on. And we're going to look at everything that I've talked about. So why don't we talk about Aries? Let's start big. We'll start with the big global picture, and then we'll work our way down with dates and transits and predictions. So let's start with Aries as the global picture. It's the first sign, we know that, and it represents the head, right? When you look at a chart, the first house really is like the face of the chart. It's exactly what it is. It's the face of the chart. So the rest of the body is sculpted out of the chart. So we have the face, and the first house is, you know, how we appear to the world based on our rising sign. And there are characteristics of the rising sign that are related to the sign and the first house. And we've gone through those characteristics many times on this show, right? So it's the face of the chart, it's the head of the chart, and that's what Aries represents. And so when we come into the body and we have the rising sign set, which is the sign that was rising at the time that you were born. Again, we're using Placidus, we're not using sidereal charts. We're using a Placidus Western system. So when that happens, right, that's going to define who you are on the ascendant, like whatever sign was rising at that time. So that's an important component. And for a brief period of time, up until about the age of 1.5, roughly, it's usually around 1.5, we are in the first house. We are first house beings. And it really typifies Aries. When we think of a child, a baby, what does a baby do? A baby does whatever the fuck it wants to do. That's what a baby does. They're really good at that. They want to laugh, they laugh. If they want to cry, they cry. If they want to scream, they scream. They eat, they scream, they laugh, they cry, they sleep, they poop. Right? And they don't have to think about any of it. It just all comes spontaneously as they react to the environment around them. That's what babies do. It's exactly what they do. Babies, up to a certain point, up to about 1.5, generally about 1.5, maybe 2, depending on the baby, they're pure will, unmanifest. And what I mean by that is that they're just an expression of who they are. And that sums up Aries in a lot of ways. That functionality, even though, of course, Aries is theoretically much more evolved than that, but that's what it typifies, right? That's what a baby does. It acts. It acts on whatever is in its environment or what it needs to or wants to do in that moment. And this is what we can begin to formulate for the sign of Aries. When the individual gets about 1.5, 2, they do the most important thing that they'll do up until that point in time in their life, and maybe even ever, is they become potty trained. They learn how to wipe their butts, right? And as soon as you learn how to wipe your butt, you are in the second house. You're in the Taurus house. Because at that point, you now become responsible for your shit. Literally and figuratively, you become responsible for your shit. So before that, though, you're not responsible for your shit. Somebody else is responsible for your shit. Hopefully, unless you've got a really bad parent, in which case they're not even responsible for their own shit. But that's what happens, right? So by the time you get into 1.5, 2, you're in Taurus and you become responsible for your shit. And from that point forward, the will is no longer about your will being unmanifest. You have to manifest your will at that point, right? I remember when I was a kid having this bad moment at Madison Square Garden, where we were watching Ringling Brothers, and I had to use the bathroom, and I didn't want to leave the circus, right? I was having too much fun, but I knew at that point in time that I had to be responsible. I had to pee, right? It's a little bit different, but still you have to exert some level of control, right? That's what we're talking about. Will. You could kind of will yourself. Well, I'm not going to do this right now because I know if I do it right now, there is a consequence to it, right? And so you don't do it. You hold off until you get to a point where you can take care of your shit, right? That's where the will becomes manifest. I manifest my will to either do the thing or not do the thing. And it's really that simple. It really comes down to that much simplicity. But in Aries, we don't do that. I mean, at least when we're young, we don't do that. We just do whatever we want, right? And so some of that translates over to the sign. Some of that translates over to Aries. They do what they want. And that's what they're here to do. Aries is about the manifestation of will, right? Unmanifest and manifest now. They are the nexus point between unmanifest will and manifest will, both men and women. And Aries are interesting. They're interesting characters. They are, by and large, they can be really cool people to get along with. And sometimes you run into the Aries side of them, which is they push, right? They push. That's what Aries does. They push. And the other side of Aries is that so Aries have a couple of options. Aries can either deal with struggle and challenge, which is inherent in the sign, or they can actively engage with struggle and challenge. And it's much better if the Aries individual engages in struggle and challenge. Because if they don't, then life becomes a struggle and a challenge for them. Either way, they're going to run into obstacles. That's what Aries is here to do. So they may as well manifest their will in order to take on the struggle or take on the challenge. If you're ever around an Aries that doesn't have any challenges in their life, shit happens to them, and then they have to meet those challenges. And I don't know if it's a byproduct of them not engaged, because see, that's ruled by Mars. Aries is ruled by Mars. We know that, right? Ruled by Mars. And the thing with Mars in a chart, if you don't use Mars, Mars will abuse you. You have to use Mars. You have to use Mars in your chart, or else it's going to get worked out in ways that you don't really want to have to deal with, right? So, for instance, let's say you have somebody. Let's say you have Mars in the 7th house. That's the house of relationships. That is not Mars's house. That's Libra's house. So how do you deal with Mars? Well, you and your partner have to do things together, right? You have to do physical things together. You have to either work out together. You have to, Mars is sex, it's energy, right? It should become an important part of your relationship. If that's not happening, things are going to become problematic with Mars in the 7th house. This is an important thing with Mars, right? If you're not like working, you can work together with Mars. You can have projects together. You can have a business together. You have to figure out, who's going to wear the hat from time to time. Who's going to drive the car from time to time. But that's part of it, right? And if you don't do that, you'll be argumentative. You'll have conflict in the 7th house. So you have to find a way for Mars to fit and work. And that's the nature of Mars in general. And with Aries, they need to have a sense that they're, doing something. They're going further than they've gone before. It's, both male and female. It's an important part of their sign. It's a very important part of their sign. So, this is critical for Aries. So when we move into this phase of the year, right, it impacts all of us. So we need to get active, and especially this year, because so much is happening in Aries this year. We have Jupiter in Aries. We have, of course, the new moon in Aries, the sun in Aries, Chiron in Aries, Mercury in Aries. Vesta is in Aries. So there's a ton of Aries in the air. And later on, of course, we have the shift of the nodes into Aries. So we're kind of a precursor or prelude mode for, when the nodes shift, and we're going to be in that 19-month period where really figuring out how to exercise your will, overcoming conflict, engaging in this idea of being self-sufficient, independence, right? The higher octave of Aries, that's what that's about. The lower octave of Aries it can be very dictatorial and unconscious of how the individual impacts others, by simply going through life and just, doing do what thou will, right? And in some ways, Aries shows us, even through the unconscious moments of Aries, they show us what that's about, right? For better or for worse. Sometimes we'll look at an Aries and like, that person, just does whatever the fuck they want, right? But I've seen this before, and they're unapologetic about that. And so they're there to show us something about that. They're there to show us and model this idea of will for us, and for better or worse. And I'll never forget my first really. I've had two major relationships with Aries women in my life. It was my very first relationship with in Aries. Well, my first real relationship, first kind of longtime girlfriend, and she was in Aries, and I learned a lot about Aries, even though I wasn't all that conversant in astrology at the time. But I learned a lot about the sign through her, and even like how at some point in time in her personal development, she said to herself, you know what, I think I'm really into women. And I had a front row seat for that. And I remember it's like, we broke up because she'd fallen in love with like her best friend, who I think was a Gemini. I think maybe I'm making that up, but and I remember, going to her house and we were going to talk about, the state of our relationship. And I opened the door and I saw my shit in a pile. I'm like, oh, I know where this is going, right? And then she told me, that she was in love with like, this woman who was her best friend. And so it was very Aries-like in a lot of ways, because she was really moving outside of her comfort zone, right? She was moving outside of the fact that, she'd had heterosexual relationships, me, some other guys or whatever. Not only that, but she was Latina. So, she was going to have to, at some point, cross that threshold with a very hardcore Latino father, very patriarchal family, right? So I was getting my first taste of Aries in a lot of ways, that this is a person who was pushing the boundaries, of their identity and of their will. So, and I never forgot that, right? I never forgot it. And I remember a certain point in time, she wanted to get back together with me. And I was like, we can't go there. And I really would have been doing her a service either, because, as an Aries, she had to keep moving forward. And eventually she stayed on that path. And I remember one time I would always run into her in weird situations. I've talked about this before. And one night I ran into her at a freaking Duran Duran concert. This is the Hungry Like the Wolf period of Duran Duran. And I'm there with my buddy, we're hanging out, but there she is, right? And she's with some dude. I'm like, well, what's up with that? Like, you're with a dude now. And I'm like, oh, okay. You kind of decided to, try that thing on again. But then she went back, and I don't think she ever looked back. In fact, I know she never looked back. But that to me, that was very typical Aries in a lot of ways. And she just moved forward and just cut a path into a world that was gonna, really stir some waves, cause some waves and ripples in her life and family. That's what Aries does, right? That's what Aries does. And then my ex-wife, mother of my kid, I remember, I don't think she'll mind me telling this story, but it's a really Aries, like she's an Aries. Aries likes her. By the way, major damage to her teeth. Like you'll see that with Aries as well, right? Aries rules the head and the teeth. And so I remember when I first met her, she had gotten into a rollerblading accident and had major damage with her teeth. And it was kind of ongoing through the time that we were married. She finally resolved a lot of that, some major oral surgery and grafting and all this really intense stuff, And so, but that's not this part of the story, although it is part of the story. But I remember there was this one time when we were going to Joshua Tree, and we had rented this RV, and it was the weirdest situation. We were at like in, I don't know, Calabasas or someplace like that, trying to pick up this RV. And it was from this kind of rinky-dink mom and pop RV place. And we got the RV, and it was a little sketchy, and she didn't like it. She was like, she didn't feel safe. And of course, being the dude, I got to go talk to the people in front. And I say, hey, there's things going on with this RV. And they walk back there and they start yelling at the help. I'm like, I don't understand this. I don't understand this way of dealing with a problem. You yell at people, right? And it was like, and it didn't work. I'm like, now I got to deal with these guys who are trying to help us with the RV. And I was like, Yeah, I told them that there were things. I didn't tell them to go yell at you though. Okay. So now we got issues, right? There's like problems. There's like, you know, bumps in the road that we're dealing with here. And the bumps in the road kept getting bumpier and bumpier to the point where I'm like, you know, 3 planets in Libra. Yeah, I'm good. Maybe we should take these things as a sign. And maybe we should go back to our warm little place by the beach. And that's where we'll spend the weekend. But because this weekend had certain significance, that was not going to happen. So then what happens? Let's go to Walmart and buy camping equipment because we didn't take the RV because it was a little sketch, right? I'm like, okay, here we go. So we go to our Walmart and let's get this and let's get, I mean, we didn't come prepared for any of this shit, right? But by the time we leave Walmart, you know, we're equipped. So then we go to Joshua Tree, which is where we're going to be. And it was the coldest fucking night in Joshua Tree. I mean, probably about 20 degrees out. And here, you know, that RV would have been nice and warm and cozy. But here we are in our Walmart camping gear. And I froze my ass off. And to me, when I, you know, and I knew this too at the time, I'm like, this is some Aries shit. You know, we're just going to keep moving. We're just keep going forward until it's done. And so, yeah, I you know, learned some lessons there with Aries. And like I said, I got 3 planets in Libra. So I tend to be more on the Libra side and go, well, you know, let's take the easy button. And that's not what Aries does. Aries does not take the easy button. And some very interesting Aries personalities, which we're going to get into here. And it's different for men and women. You know, I mean, I do think it's different for men and women. And I think one of the hardest signs astrologically for women is Aries because it's ruled by Mars, right? You know, the saying, men are from Mars and women are from Venus. Well, if you're an Aries woman, you're not. You know, you're dealing with really heavy Mars energy. And I think it's hard for Aries women. That's just my takeaway because it's, you know, it's kind of antithetical theoretically, right? So Aries women tend to be very strong-willed women. You know, like my first girlfriend, she had such a strong will, you know, she risked being excommunicated from a traditional Catholic Latin family with a strong patriarch because she decided that she liked girls, right? I mean, there you go. I mean, this is what Aries women, you know, get to deal with. And we're going to go through a list of Aries here, and you'll see some of the examples I'm talking about. And I've always felt like for men, I don't think being a Libra man is hard. Like I don't think it translates that way. I think the hardest sign for a man is Cancer because of the sensitivity involved. But that's for a different show. All right. So I've given you a little bit of a background. Aries rules the head, all the head, the teeth, will, pioneering, right? Like there is a flirtation with danger, although Aries will never say that because it's all encapsulated in the package, right? It's not like, oh yeah, I'm going to go look for danger. It's just part of the expression, right? It's part of the expression of Aries. So let me go through this list. There's a lot of really interesting people, and then we're going to get into some charts around Aries and some upcoming transits. All right, let's go here. Where are we? The 100 most famous Aries. Now, I always find these things to be interesting, especially in terms of how they're ranked. I don't agree with the rankings. I don't agree with the rankings. They've got this guy, AJ Devgan. Now, is this the guy that does Catfish on MTV? I think that's the guy. I don't know why he's ranked number 1. You'll see quite a few criminals with Aries too. Not like the mass murderer types that you'll see with you know, like Gemini or Pisces, you know, the whole litany Pisces, Gemini, Virgo, Sag, the quote unquote serial killers. No, you'll see some hardened criminals with Aries, gun types. So you have Joe Gallo, Clyde Barrow. Doesn't he look like, what's his name? Alfalfa from Little Rascals. That's Clyde Barrow of Bonnie and Clyde. You got Eric Clapton, Aries, and that fits him, right? Because he's part of that kind of first wave of English rock, of the English rock guitar gods. You kind of need an Aries out front. And there's Clapton. Robert Downey Jr., Aries. Charlie Chaplin, a physical comedian, right? Chaplin's interesting from the Aries perspective. It's all physical, he's not in the talkies. So everything he does is connected to the expression of the individual, right? And you get it through Chaplin. Very interesting character. He also plays a dictator, doesn't he? The little dictator, remember that? And Aries can sometimes be a bit dictatorial. You got Thomas Jefferson, who plays a role in the French Revolution, basically kind of writes the Bill of Rights that the Jacobins would use for the French Revolution. Jefferson was definitely a guy that did whatever the fuck he wanted. He was a big wine connoisseur too, apparently. Van Gogh, what do we know about Van Gogh? He's missing an ear. That's an Aries thing, right? Cuts the head. You'll see some major military figures with Aries, like Otto von Bismarck. Roger Bannister, you'll see pioneering types with Aries. Roger Bannister, first man to break the 4-minute mile. That's the very Aries thing. He's there first, right? Roger Bannister. Now, Pete Rose is an interesting character. He played like a fucking Aries. Right? Pete Rose, another guy, did whatever he wanted. And I wanted to show this picture of Pete Rose because to me, it typifies, hey, Peachy, it typifies Aries. So here we have Pete Rose. What's he doing? He's sliding head first, right? To me, this typifies Aries. No helmet. And prior to Pete Rose, a lot of people slid with their cleats first, feet first, not Pete. Not Pete. And what is he known for besides gambling and not being allowed into the Hall of Fame? Pete Rose ran into Ray Fosse. I think it was the 1971 All-Star game, if I'm not mistaken, at home plate. And it was an Aries moment, right? Collision, hard collision with Ray Fosse. And he knocked the ball. It's an all-star game. Who the fuck does that in an all-star game? It's like Pete Rose is playing like it was the ninth inning, bottom of the ninth of a World Series. I mean, that's how Pete lived and played. Exactly like that. And he kind of ruined Fosse's career after that. Although he could still play, but his shoulder was never the same. But to me, this typifies Aries. And even, he plays for the Cincinnati Reds, and it's the color red, right? Aries is blood, Aries is Mars. And so Pete Rose is a prototypical Aries, if there ever was one. Boss Tweed, who basically is the intersection between crime and politics. Tammany Hall, that Boss Tweed, gangs of New York. Haley Joel Osment. I don't know if there's anything real Aries to say about him. Marlon Brando's an Aries. He did a lot of times with Aries, you'll see that they do whatever the fuck they want, right? Nobody told Brando what to do. Same with Pete Rose. Nobody told Pete Rose what to do. I remember there's this one story about Pete Rose where he was, where was he? Was it Cincinnati? It was either Cincinnati or another city. Pete Rose's mistress was in the stands, and his wife knew about the mistress, and his wife went up to the mistress, and I guess Pete Rose had given the mistress like some pearls or something, and the wife went up to her and just ripped the necklace right off her, right at the stadium in the game. That was Pete Rose. He did whatever he wanted to do. Same with Marlon Brando. Nobody told Brando what to do. Nobody told him what to do. Not even Coppola. Da Vinci, we have the Spirit of the Pioneer with Da Vinci, right? Whoever he was. Rodney King. What do we know about Rodney King? Assaulted, beaten up. You know, by what? Cops. What are cops? They're Aries. Aries rules police, military. Rodney King's got the weirdest chart. I have it up here, actually. See if I can find it. Is this it? No, that's not it. Hold on. Okay, I'm going to find Rodney. Hold on a second. Let me do this. Let me go back. Oops. Hold on. I need to stop share. My bad. I have Rodney King's chart. I did it on purpose. I brought it up. Hold on. Is this it? I think it's in here somewhere. Hold on. He's got the weirdest chart. When I saw his chart, I said, I gotta bring this thing up. Yeah, Rodney King's an Aries. Of course he's an Aries. Gets the shit beat out of him. Right, I thought I had his chart. Give me 1 second here. Let me go into Astro. Yeah, it's right here. Rodney Glenn King, born April 2nd, 1965 in Sacramento, California. He's got the weirdest damn chart. So this is Rodney King's chart. Sun, Venus, Mercury retrograde, Moon, Aries, all 12th house. All 12th house. Rodney King had a hard life. I mean, I imagine prior, even to when those dudes took a whooping to him, he had a weird, look at this chart. You got inconjuncts all over the place. Neptune, 7th house, right? The inconjunct with Neptune. Well, he was high in PCP, right? I mean, back in the day when PCP was the thing, people would go fucking nuts. You couldn't stop them. I mean, it was like the precursor of bath salts. And, you know, did they go too far? I don't know. I don't know. Back in the day when you had people that were high in Sherman, Rodney King was not a small dude, right? But the thing that was different about Rodney King than anything else, video. It was the first time they had captured such a beating on video. And so we have the true node in Gemini with communication. And then we have Saturn, which is, you know, again, theoretical authority. And what do we have here? Mars, Pluto, Uranus, all oppositional. All oppositional. 5th house, we could call that recreational, right? And then Saturn is the popo, it's the police. Just the weirdest chart. Weirdest chart. And then he comes in with can't we all just get along, right? Neptune, 7th house, Mars trine Neptune. Can't we all just get along? Anyway, Rodney King, Aries. And he took what? Blows to the head. All right, where's the rest of our Aries people? Let's go through some of these. Diana Ross. You're going to see a lot of female soul singers under the sign of Aries. One of my favorite Aries, Ayrton Senna, who of course died, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, was it on the solstice? It was. When did Senna die? Hold on, let's look at his profile here. Died on May Day. May Day. That's right. I knew it was a symbolic day. And you know what's interesting? Senna actually proves my thesis right about people born in the year of the rat. Right? Look at him. He's got a rodent look about him, doesn't he? Fucking rat people, man. I happen to be one. And I actually had a rat when I was a kid. Senna, when he died, I loved Senna. Speed. You'll see this with Aries too. You'll see guys that are into speed, right? They like to push the envelope. And Senna, when he died, it was such a freak accident. His steering column broke, and part of the steering column went and drove itself just beneath the helmet, right here. So it went into where the visor was, a half an inch higher, and that part of the steering column hits him, but it doesn't penetrate his eye and into his skull and kill him. So it's a very Aries death, right, by the head. And Senna knew he was going to die. That was the weird part about it too. It was a race. It was in San Marino, and there had been one major accident, 2 deaths in the qualifying of the race, and Senna was troubled, absolutely troubled. And he went through the race, and he didn't make it, but he was amazing, and he lived his life like an Aries. In a lot of ways, an interesting combination of religiosity and being unapologetic. Wilbur Wright, a bit of a daredevil, of course. Elton John, an Aries. Bolsonaro, another Brazilian, also an Aries. And you saw how Bolsonaro ran his government. He ran it like an Aries until the end, in which he flew the white flag. Mariah Carey, again, you're going to see a lot of soul singers, women with big voices and big personalities as Aries. Mary Pickford, one of the early movies. Richard Kuklinski, right? Another heavy-duty Aries. Khrushchev, who says, "We will bury you." He probably wasn't too wrong about that. Betty Davis. Betty Davis is one of those characters in cinema, not always likable, right? She's not always likable. She's an Aries. Okay, now Lil Nas X is an Aries. Look at Lil Nas X. Does he look like he could be Eddie Murphy's kid? I think he looks like he could be Eddie Murphy's kid. Guess what? Eddie Murphy is an Aries. Lady Gaga, Aries. We know Lady Gaga is strong-willed. She kind of looks a little male there. It's got a little bit of that Aries male vibe. Tony Perkins, the psycho, Aries. Marvin Gaye, Aries. Another guy, he did the soundtrack for the movie, Trouble Man. It's a good movie. Glenn Turman. Was it Glenn Turman? No, Robert Hooks. Robert Hooks is Trouble Man. And Marvin Gaye was the personification of Trouble Man. Weird dude. Marvin Gaye was a very weird guy. Strange guy, very spiritual, but also very, very fucked up. And had lots of conflict in his life. Married Berry Gordy's sister and divorced her. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Aries. He starts my pantheon of basketball through the signs, right? Like every great basketball player, starting with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in the modern era, goes through the signs. You ready? Here we go. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar starts the modern era in basketball, Aries. The next great player who changes the game after Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is, please, Dr. J, who is a Pisces. The next player that changes the game after that is Michael Jordan, and he is an Aquarius. Boom. Then after that, you have the next great player. And it's not Kobe, by the way. It's not Kobe. It's LeBron. And what is LeBron? Capricorn. So we go Aries, Pisces, Aquarius, Capricorn. And then after that, we have Giannis Antetokounmpo, who's won 2 MVPs. He's won an NBA title. Sagittarius. So you see how this goes with basketball and astrology? It all starts with Kareem. Okay, I'm going to go on the record right now. The next great player, if he gets a chance, it's got to be a Scorpio. Right, we're talking Scorpio. Probably somebody you never heard of, Patrick Baldwin Jr., who plays for the Golden State Warriors. Just remember that name. Maria Sharapova, hardcore tennis player. She won Wimbledon. And then after that, I think she just kind of faded away. I'll never forget one time somebody said to her, it was an interview, it was, oh, you spent all of your youth doing nothing but playing tennis. Do you feel like you wasted your youth? She said, no, I won Wimbledon. What are you talking about? It's like, that was an Aries answer, right? Cut and dry. But then once she got there, it was like Maria Sharapova's, this is the other side of Aries. Aries burns really hot. Like Kareem had a really long career. Marvin Gaye is interesting because he's got the Tammy, what's her name? What's her name? I always want to say Tammy Wynette. No, it's Tammy Terrell. Is that what her name was? Right. Anyway, the duets. It Takes Two, babe, right? It Takes Two. Those two. He's got that part of his career, and then that goes away. And then he has this, the Marvin Gaye that we kind of know, that 1970s Motown, what's going on, Trouble Man, Marvin Gaye. And then he goes into this other weird period where he doesn't do anything, and he comes back again with sexual healing. So Marvin Gaye will burn hot for a period of time, and then he'll burn out, and then he'll burn hot for a period of time. That's kind of how Aries operates as well. Kurosawa, who does great film work, and a lot of it having to do with samurais, the blade in Aries. There's Pope Benedict. Let's see, Charlemagne. You'll see some kind of great military leaders. Rene Descartes. I think, therefore I am. That is an Aries sentiment if I've ever heard one. Here's another big soul singer, right? Big blues, Billie Holiday. Some people say Billie Holiday, died for the sins of other great soul singers that would come after her. She's the first that really comes on, and there's a lot of them here. Chaka Khan's another one, which we'll see. We got Doris Day, Robin Penn Wright, Lucy Lawless. Lucy Lawless, wasn't she like? She played the female superhero character, right? Which is a very Aries female thing to do. Wasn't she Xena? She was Xena. That's such a female Aries thing to do. Harry Houdini, the great magician. Butch Cassidy, another criminal type. Rob Trains. Kim Il-sung. Let's see. Jane Mansfield. Here we go. Hot Ticket. How did Jane Mansfield die? She lost her head. Decapitated. The engine of the car. What was it? I think it was the it might have been, it might have actually been the radiator blade. That's what happened when she got into that accident. She was driving late at night. She became decapitated. Mansfield was all about doing whatever the fuck she wanted, right? And I'll emphasize the word fuck, the Jane Mansfield. Jack Ruby, another criminal type. And what do we know about Jack Ruby? Well, we know that theoretically he put a gun to Lee Harvey Oswald's head and shot him, right? Very Aries thing to do, even though there's a couple of takes on that. Heath Ledger. Again, Heath Ledger as an actor burns hot. He doesn't have a long career. But what we know about Heath Ledger is the Joker and some of his other roles is that they're pretty iconic. Bach. It's kind of interesting that Western music, in a lot of ways, after we go from Gregorian chant, polyphony, goes to Bach, and he starts it all off, right? He's an Aries. And there's something perfect about Bach. And then all the way down the line, we got Andrew Lloyd Webber at the other end of the spectrum, right? Joan Crawford. Joan Crawford and Betty Davis are both Aries. And in a lot of ways, they're both kind of unlikable women, right? Strong-willed, crazy, like they kind of typify Aries in a lot of ways in the feminine form. We got Gordie Howe, the badass hockey player, Aretha Franklin, another great. So all these great female soul singers are born under the sign of Aries. Really interesting. Really, really interesting. It's like, they're kind of standing toe to toe with a lot of men at that time in the business. Christopher Walken is an Aries. J.P. Morgan's an Aries. Ewan McGregor is an Aries. Hobbes, another, Hobbes, the economist, Hobbes, an Aries. Booker T. Washington, kind of a pioneer, right? Aries. These two are really funny together. Steven Seagal and Tamer Lane, they kind of look alike, right? They kind of look alike. Of course, Seagal known for martial arts, and being a complete Aries in a lot of ways. Who else do we have? There's a few others here that are interesting. More Haggard's and Aries. Let's get into a few more. Logan Paul. What does Logan Paul do? He fights, right? He took up fighting. Got his ass kicked last time. He's an Aries. David Hogg. Even if David Hogg is anti-gun, like Aries represents guns, right? Things, firearms, knives. Hogg's in the discussion, even if he's anti-gun. William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy are both Aries, and they both did not like each other. They had a love-hate relationship with each other, especially on the set of Star Trek. Literally, as two Aries, they butted heads. They completely butted heads. There's Eddie Murphy. If you look at Lil Nas X, man, I'm telling you, Muddy Waters. Oh, should I skip over another not really well-liked Aries woman? Nancy Pelosi. We'll skip Beckham. Muddy Waters. You know what Muddy Waters is famous for? His famous tune? Mannish Boy. I'm a man, right? That's an Aries tune. So we get a full dose of Aries with Muddy Waters. Maya Angelou, Aries. Spencer Tracy, Aries. The inventor of baseball, Alexander Cartwright, is an Aries. Who else do we have down here? Billy D. Williams, the best Colt 45 salesman. Aries. Jack Johnson. You see a lot of fighters, boxers that are Aries. Jack Johnson's one of them. Logan Paul turns out to be a boxer. Poor Martin Lawrence, whatever happened to him. David Letterman, Aries. Let's see. Let's do one more. Pharrell Williams, Aries. Werner von Braun. Phallic symbols into space, right? Projectiles into space. Werner von Braun, Aries. Cesar Chavez, who really starts the farm workers union, and Chavez has been militant, right? Aries. There's Leonard Nimoy, Pharrell Williams, Leonard Nimoy, another Aries. Maxim Gorky, Aries. Colin Powell. You'll see military dudes, a lot of military dudes, fighters. Sam Walton is an Aries. Of course, Sam Walton was in the military. Sam Walton ran the concentration camps in America for the Japanese back in World War II. Shannon Doherty. This was a woman who was not always really likable. There were people who didn't like Shannon Doherty. I didn't see anything wrong with her. James Jeffries, right? Aries. Who else do we have? Sonia Henney, the athlete, skater. Hugh Hefner. There's a bizarre cat, right? Hugh Hefner. But what does he do? He creates Playboy, and he gets into the heads of men, right? And basically mainstreams erotica. Not necessarily in a good way. I don't think Playboy did men any favors, actually. Casanova, Aries. Coppola is totally an Aries. You know, whenever you read about Coppola and look at his relationship with film, there's always struggles, you know. Apocalypse Now, and he does movies that are really Aries based. You know, Apocalypse Now is a war movie. His star or lead, Marlon Brando, is an Aries, right? Coppola is an Aries. It's probably one of the best war movies of all time, fraught with trouble, fraught with conflict, and yet he goes through with it, right? The Godfather, those are violent fucking movies. And even with The Godfather, he has issues at times with the studios in The Godfather. Even Dracula, which is like one of the last movies he's done, you know, starring Gary Oldman, it's about blood, right? Aries rules blood. So a lot of his films are thematically Aries. Even the small movie Tucker that stars Jeff Bridges, which is about an automobile manufacturer that makes a cutting edge automobile. It's very Aries-like. All right, let's go through a few more and then we get into some of the charts. Al Gore's an Aries. He certainly had a challenge and a struggle on the way to not being elected. Loretta Lynn's an Aries. Who else do we have that's interesting? Tarantino, Aries. Violence plays a huge role in his films. Violence, guns. Most of his films are for men. They're not for women, right? Even though some women like his films. Those are dude films. Those are Aries, except for Kill Bill, which is a whole other story. But I think women and men like that film. Nate Tiny Archibald, Aries. Tris Speaker, Aries. Strother Martin, Aries. Russell Crowe and Gary Oldman. Hey, Gary Oldman. This is an interesting row here. Alec Baldwin is such a fucking Aries, right? The gun stuff. He's headstrong. You know, and he literally, the weird part about Alec Baldwin is that his father was basically the gun instructor at the local high school. But seriously, he taught at the local high school. The Baldwin family has been around guns all their life. And of course, Alec Baldwin being an Aries, you know, that would kind of fit there, right? Except, and in his movies, he uses lots of guns. And of course, the last movie he was on, Rust, there was the alleged death. I don't even think he's gone. Like, has there even been a trial for that? Like, there's a lot of high strange around that fucking movie. Gary Oldman, of course, he stars in Coppola's Dracula. There he is, right? And Russell Crowe, Russell Crowe's not aged well. But what do we know of Russell Crowe? Gladiator. You know, that's one of his archetypal roles. I mean, all these guys have these archetypes that are baked into their roles. Let's see, Secretariat, definitely an Aries. There was one, James Woods is an Aries, Ravi Shankar is an Aries. Kyrie Irving, of course, Kyrie's an Aries. I'm surprised that he actually apologized for his tweet. That stunned me. It took him a long time to get there, but he eventually apologized for it. Let's see. There was somebody here who was kind of interesting. Oh yeah, Steve McQueen. Another guy, a racer, right? Steve McQueen raced cars, you know, and his characters are always edgy. They're always edgy. And McQueen had this very off-putting technique. It was when he was in a film with somebody, even though if the scene didn't have any dialogue with him, he would do something. He would touch his head, or he would always draw the attention away from the rest of the scene. And the film that he really became well known for was The Great Escape. And the thing that was really kind of archetypal about McQueen in The Great Escape was when he kept trying to escape over and over again. would always wind up in the cooler. If that's not Aries, I don't know what Aries is. Denny McClain, the last man to win 31 games in Major League Baseball, typifies Aries. He flashed hot. He had about 4 seasons where he was at the top of his game in Major League Baseball, and then he burns out, right? You'll see this a lot with Aries. Even Steve McQueen. Steve McQueen didn't live a very long life. Steve McQueen, he flashed hot, and then he eventually burns out. John Stockton said no to the old vaccine, right? Mellon and JP Morgan, they're born during this time, but they're both Aries. Cale Yarborough, another race car driver, right? So I'm just trying to, get you guys to kind of see that there are these archetypes. William Westmoreland, military Aries. Jerry Lucas is an interesting character because Jerry Lucas was a memory master. In addition to being a Hall of Fame basketball player, he could fucking tell you every single name in the phone book, right? That is such an Aries thing with the head in a lot of ways. Adrian Brody, Aries. Martin Short, Aries. Richie Blackmore, one of the least likable rock stars. I also found that Matthew Broderick was an Aries. His wife, who was on Sex and the City, is an Aries, and so is Cynthia Nixon. So you got 3 Aries that are associated with that group. Al Unser, another race car driver, Aries, right? So again, we're starting to see the profile. Gloria Steinem, hello, women's lib, be more like a man, Aries. There's your perfect your perfect baked in the cake agent. Let me just go through a few more here. This line is really fascinating. Rick Barry was a complete asshole. He's an Aries. Nobody liked playing with Rick Barry. Nobody liked him because he was always telling people what they should be doing. And when the Warriors played against the I guess it was the Phoenix Suns to get to the championships for the second straight year, Rick Barry got into a fight, Aries, with a player by the name of Ricky Sobers. And he noticed that nobody came to his defense during the fight. And the Warriors were not the same team if Rick Barry wasn't scoring. And he noticed that nobody stood up for him when he went into that fight with Ricky Sobers. And so the second half came around, he didn't even shoot. He would pass the ball. And of course, they lost the game. They didn't go to the, so he was so headstrong, right, that he basically did a big middle finger to the team. And I don't think he was very long for the Warriors after that. They traded him for John Lucas. Christopher Hitchens, the ultimate atheist in Aries. Who else do we have here? David Justice, Aries. Rosie O'Donnell. And this guy Duterte from the Philippines, it was interesting because Duterte and Bolsonaro were both in power at the same time, and they were both very typical Aries. And in fact, Duterte was even more of an Aries than Bolsonaro. Like he was gonna kill anybody that was dealing drugs. Duterte was not somebody you wanted to mess with. He's no longer in power. Anybody else here? Bill Belichick, total Aries, right? Went to military academy, runs his team like it's a fucking military unit, man a few words. Belichick, archetypal Aries. He's not trying to be your best friend. That's another thing with Aries. They're not here to be your best friend. If you're friends with them, great. But that's not what they're here to do. That's not their mission. It's more Libra. Well, Clyde Frazier, Aries. Klitschko, the boxer, politician, Aries. Anybody else here that's interesting? Richard Sherman, complete asshole. Complete asshole. Got hit one time by Trent Williams. Eventually literally I watched Trent Williams on the side because Richard Sherman was such a dick that after the game, Trent Williams, who was playing for the Redskins, clocked him on the sideline. And eventually they become teammates for the 49ers. That's how much of an asshole he was. Anybody else here? JJ Watt, Aries, Tom Glavine, Aries. Anybody of note? Rex Tillerson, who used to work for Trump, Aries. He got kicked out fast. Alan Dulles, Aries. Jennifer Capriati, another tennis star, Aries. I think we're coming down. Oh, Jeremy Clarkson, another guy into cars and speed, right? And of all the guys who were part of that show, was it something Gear, Top Gear? Everybody thought he was an asshole, right? It's funny about Jeremy Clarkson. Jeremy Clarkson couldn't stand America, but he was the most American guy that was part of that show. Aries. Anybody else here? Dennis Quaid. Dennis Quaid's ranked 373. If I was Dennis Quaid, I'd have some issue with being ranked 373. So that gives you some idea and understanding about some of the Aries types and archetypes. All right, why don't we do this? Let's take a look at the Trump stuff. What is going on with Donald Trump in Tuesday? I got the chart. It's right there. So I would say that the aspect that typifies what's going on with Trump is this Mars Sun conjunction. Now remember, let me do something really fast here because I'm going to go back here and let's go. Let's do this. Trump raid. Let's do this. All right. So Trump. Okay, so the Trump raid at Mar-a-Lago. I just want to get the date on that. That was on September 4th, right? September 4th. Let's see, Mar-a-Lago scene. Hold on, let me get the right date here. I apologize. Give me 1 sec. So what happens when you use a shitty search engine? Let me get into let me do this stop share for a second. I don't like using Google, but here, let's do this. Let's do DuckDuck. Let's see. Raid on Mar-a-Lago. Raid on Mar-a-Lago this week. The NBC movie of the week. Raid on Mar-a-Lago. So it's August 8th. That's right. That was the day when Nixon was pardoned by Gerald Ford. August 8th. There was a lot going on that day. I remember that day now. Okay. So let me do this. Let me go here. I just want to do something real fast. So we're going to go back into 2022. And let's go to August 8th. Seems like an eternity, doesn't it? In a lot of ways. In a lot of ways it was. August 8th. Okay, so at August 8th, Mars was in Taurus. It went into Gemini on August 21st. All right. So let's go back to Trump's chart now. So at that point in time, let's see. August 8th. Mars is at 22. So let's go here. Back into the Trump chart. So this is essentially where Mars was right there, 2 degrees off of his midheaven conjunct Algol. So in a lot of ways, this is where, even though it's through conflict, Trump comes kind of back into the public light through the raid on Mar-a-Lago. That's where Mars was at that time. Jupiter was in Aries at 8 degrees. So it was right on Eris, which is discord and chaos. So Jupiter's back again, and it's getting ready to move out of his 9th house. So those are really kind of the big players, right? Now we have Mars here, and this is where it's going to be on Tuesday. So it's going to be at, this is for transit for March 21st. Of course, it's going to be 2 days from now. That's Tuesday. So we have Mars right here at 27 Gemini. So it's 5 degrees off his sun, but still conjunct his sun, right? So that's conflict. So we're seeing Mars in action. And again, you know, Trump is a Leo rising, but he has Mars on his ascendant. So he's always about conflict. He's always about Mars and conflict. You don't get peace with Trump, right? You don't. That's not how he rolls. You know, he's got Jupiter in Libra and Chiron in Libra, and you know, it's interesting because of all the people that were president, he's the one person that seemed to want to throttle back on these wars. He kind of kept the neocons at bay, actually, unlike his predecessors or his successor. You know, once he left, the neocons got right back in on things, and you know, and went after Ukraine, and we started up the war machine. And you know, and you can kind of see that with Trump a little bit. So he'll deal with conflict personally. Like, that's the weird thing about Trump, is like he'll invoke conflict all the time, but in terms of like international or, you know, these foreign wars, he didn't really accelerate them. In fact, if anything, he decelerated them in a way that, you know, his predecessors or his successor has not done. You know, now he's calling for a different kind of war. I mean, because this is what's coming out now, right? He's got Mars conjuncting his sun, and it's been there, you know, roughly about 2 weeks now. So you can tell, like, even his activity level has picked up. You know, when he started to give his speech about these freedom cities, and, you know, and we can even back Mars off, you know, by a couple of weeks. And, you know, he had more kind of anti-DeSantis rhetoric. I mean, that's all been Mars, you know, moving, you know, being liberated from its retrograde motion and kind of igniting Trump. Now, whether or not you're into it or not, that's a whole other thing. I'm not into it, right? I'm not into it. It's kind of like, you know, where was your Mars when you were elected? Like, that's my feeling about it. I'll tell you where his Mars was. It was eclipsed. When we had that eclipse in 2017, the Great American Eclipse, remember that? August 21st, it was right on his ascendant. And what did the sun do? It eclipsed his identity. It eclipsed his Mars. That was such a potent, like, time and symbol for Trump and the country. Because from that point forward, in a lot of ways, Trump was powerless. You know, you can see how an eclipse works directly right here, right there. It was right freaking there. And then there's images of him looking right into the sun, right? It's like he's tempting fate in a lot of ways. Don't think that he didn't know what was going on, right? He knew what was going on. And I think he was doing everything in his power to channel the intensity and the power of the black sun. His his penthouse at Trump Tower is a shrine to Apollo. Trump sees himself as kind of an incarnation of a sun god. I think people call him Apollyon. I mean, I think that's one of the nicknames for Trump, but his power was eclipsed during that time. So here comes Mars again. Now we're dealing with this idea that he's going to be arrested, and he's encouraging people to take the fucking country back. I think it's crazy. Honestly, I think it's crazy. And we're dealing, here's the other thing that's going on, right? Like, we're dealing with these Gemini kinds of crises, and we have this whole banking thing that's going on. Don't think that he doesn't know about the banking thing, although I haven't heard him talk about the banking thing very much. So we have the banking thing going on. We have the January 6th stuff that's happening, right? All the footage of January 6th is coming out. And that is one of the ghosts in Trump's past, is January 6th. And we have the Twitter files and what the FBI was doing. So we have all these things going on now. Like, they're all out there, and they're like live wires. They're like power lines that have been snapped. High intensity winds have snapped these power lines, and they're just sparking and crackling, right? They're out there. And now we have this thing with Trump getting arrested. And what is it doing? It's taking away the focus from all these other things that are out there right now. The banking crisis, basically the lying crisis with January 6th, it being, for all intents and purposes, staged. We watched, and if there's an algorithm that's listening, there's video of the Capitol Police walking Buffalo Shaman guy through the freaking Capitol. They're giving him a guided tour. Okay, it's all coming out. And the stuff with Twitter is coming out. And what are we doing now? We're dealing with Trump's imminent arrest and his call to action to take the country back. This is all happening, and it's all happening during a time where's the sun going to be? In Aries, right? Boom, right there. There's your sun in Aries, 21st, Tuesday. And by the way, we're tapping into the equinox on Tuesday. I got a chart for that. It's very close to the equinox chart. So we're getting into Aries season. What is Trump doing? Right? He's invoking the power of Aries. He's invoking the power of conflict. He's invoking the power of war. This is what's going on. And we have been completely divided as a country. I mean, the division, look, it takes a lot of time and a lot of pressure to erode an empire, right? Think of wind, think of waves, right? Think of heat and how it over time on a coastline begins to wear away at the coastline. So in order to erode an empire, it takes a lot of these different elements and time to do it. And we could go back to, and I've done this before, we could go back to Clinton. We'll go back to Clinton. And that division really starts to happen. And then we go from Clinton to Bush, and it happens more, right? And then we go into Obama, who's going to be the great uniter. gets even worse, right? All this whole erosion process has been taking place for a while now. And so by the time we get to Trump, it's already been well set into motion, And you have groups of people who believe that they've been fucked over, right? On the right side and on the left side. Well, we've been fucked over. And, what does Trump do? He bangs the drum, right? He bangs the drum to make America great again. And it polarizes the country. I mean, it's part of what his chart is about. Trump is a disruptor. And Trump did some things that I think that were interesting in terms of disruption. But disruptors don't make great leaders. You know what makes a great leader? Somebody who's fucking boring. I'm telling you. Great leaders are boring because they're doing things behind the scenes that are not sexy, right? A great leader is somebody who is solid. I don't use the word boring. Let me take that. No, they're not boring. A great leader is somebody who is consistent. And sometimes being consistent is boring. It's just the way it is. Sometimes being consistent is boring. If you're consistently impeccable, you're not boring. If you're consistently responsible and demonstrate character, you're not boring. But that's what but that's how a great leader shows up. They're consistent. And a lot of times that can be misconstrued as being predictable or boring. Behind the scenes, they're doing a lot more than they are, in front of the cameras, right? So I don't think disruptors make great leaders. I think disruptors make great disruptors. And Trump is a world-class disruptor. And I think that was part of what he was supposed to do. But if he was a great leader would have stayed in office. I'm just saying. A great leader would have stayed in office. A great leader would have found a way to bring people together. And he may say, well, that was, baked in the cake, that they were going to do this no matter what. No, a great leader would have done some stuff. A great leader would have flushed the White House of anybody that was related to the Obama administration. I'm just saying, he didn't do that. I didn't understand that. I'm going off script a little bit here. But I just didn't understand how he could leave all these people in place who were the source of so many leaks. Like I would never be expected to be anywhere near the caliber of what you would want to be as a president or need to be as a president. But I know a few things. And the first thing that I would do is I'd look around and say, who do we have left from the other guy's regime? And I'd sit down and I'd have a portfolio of everybody from that regime that worked for Obama. And I would say, who do we absolutely need? Absolutely need. And they would say, well, we need this person, this person. Okay, keep them around. And then keep a few around that we think would be somebody that we might be able to manipulate. And then get rid of the rest. And then fill in the rest. And then the ones that we absolutely need, we'll deal with them over time. And then what I would do, here's the Machiavellian side of me, is I'd use the ones that theoretically would be the ones that would be the most willing and able to spread rumors to the media. I'd give them false information. That's what I do. I'd give them false information. And I'd set it up so that, that ultimately the media would be discredited. But that's just me. That's just me. And Trump never really did that. He got into trouble, right? So he's a great disruptor. I don't think he's a great leader. That's just my 2 cents. You may disagree with me. And so we're going through another disruptive phase here with Mars in the invocation of Aries. At the time of the spring equinox, it's a call for fucking war. Okay? It's like there's plenty of conflict in the air, plenty of strife in the air. There's plenty of it. Do we really need another rallying call for taking our country back. This is going to be very interesting to watch. You know, is he going to turn himself in? Is he going to go to jail? I mean, this is all Stormy Daniels stuff, right? This is all eighth house stuff. Sex, payoff, whatever. Like, nobody in politics is fucking clean. I'm sorry. They're just not clean. Nobody is. Nobody. They all have their skeletons, right? And they all have to get to a place in order to get there. It's just the way the game is played. If you have any other illusions about it, you're getting kind of a wake-up call now. All right, so what does the energy of the equinox look like? Well, let's get into it. I have it right up here. So let me see, what do we have here? That's 320. I guess tomorrow is the day, right? I don't know why they have it at 29 Pisces tomorrow. Let me see this. Hold on. Yeah, so it's Monday, March 20th at 4:24 p.m. So this is the chart. So what's interesting about Tuesday is that Tuesday is really the first day of Aries. So this is a trip for this year's equinox. So the sun is at 29. So there's 4:24 p.m. Sun's at 29 Pisces. So we're really not into the astrological new year until later that day, and then moving into Tuesday. And that's Trump's call for action is on Tuesday, 29 Pisces. So we're at the end of the astrological new year, as the beginning of the astrological new year begins based on the time here, 4:24 p.m. It's really strange, right? We're not in zero Aries here. This is when the equinox begins. It begins at 29 Pisces. So what does that mean for us? Does that mean that we're stuck? That we're stuck in a year where it's not like fully new? Are we stuck in this, astrological year where we're still dealing with sort of the end of something kind of dangling, hanging out there, that we don't get a really true sense of renewal until the following day, which is post-equinox? I mean, I know we're in the equinox energy, right? Like the day after is still in the equinox energy, but this is the day. This is the day. And the sun is at 29 Pisces. And the moon is in Pisces too at 18. So we have this lingering Pisces effect as we move into the astrological new year. It's like a hangover. It's what it feels like. It feels like a hangover. So this is a really interesting kind of snapshot of that energy. So it's almost as if the astrological new year doesn't exist until Trump gets arrested. And that's a weird way to bring it in, but it's also very Aries-like, right? It's very, very Aries-like. So this is what it looks like on the 20th, 320. Now, Mercury is in Aries, and it'll be there 3 degrees. So we're already dealing with the signals, right? We're already dealing with the signals that Trump is going to get arrested on Tuesday. And, so Aries, Mercury's talking to us already. But this is a really strange stellium here. Sun, Neptune, Moon. It's almost like, the aged Poseidon, where the aged Poseidon is being summoned from the deep for one last time. It's an interesting image of Poseidon kind of ruling over the year. Like, this is the new year, and Poseidon is not done. Neptune is not done. So this astrological new year has this anaretic Piscean degree associated with it. at least at the jump, right? The next day, yeah, we got the new energy the next day, but this day where the year is supposed to turn and begin anew, it is not. We're dealing with things that are unfinished, right? We're not necessarily dealing with a classical astrological new year. And I think it has an effect moving forward. It's kind of like we're kind of holding on to things that and that 29th degree is such a hard degree. I mean, it is really the crucifixion degree of the zodiac, which is kind of interesting because in a lot of ways, right, it is also invoking this Saturn Piscean energy. So we have Saturn in Pisces, really at the beginning, right? This would be the alpha and the sun would be the omega of this, stellium here. So we can't underestimate the influence of this Piscean energy for the rest of the year. And in fact, we are in the year of the rabbit, which is ruled by Pisces. We can't get away from it. As much as we'd like to jumpstart and kickstart this year, and we'll get there, don't get me wrong, it's going to happen. But I would say the prevailing energy of the year has a lot to do with things that are deeply unfinished. And I don't know when the astrological new year starts in 2024, but I would bet here and now that it's not going to be a 29 Pisces. Is it really truly the astrological new year, or are we working through sort of the final stages of this Piscean drama, this mythos that we've been in? Because next year is really when we go fully into Pluto in Aquarius. Now, that happens at the end of next year, but we're still hanging out here. We're still hanging out with all of this Piscean drama. And even, this idea of prison and jail and incarceration and scapegoats. Trump is putting himself up to be a scapegoat. He's portending in his own way to be a victim, right? A victim of, the current regime, a victim of the socialists, a victim of the globalists. And Trump this is the narrative now. And it's all part of this kind of Piscean mythos, right? And then on the next day, as the sun moves into Aries, and boom, it's time to move into action, and let's take our country back. It's very, very interesting energy for the start of the astrological new year. There's nothing new about it. It's old. It's like, it's so old that we're fucking over it, right? Like, we're over this shit. I mean, this is kind of what it feels like to me. We're, and even here we got this Mars square coming in, and it's like, are you kidding? Are we rolling this thing out again? Are we kind of rolling Jan 6 2.0 out again? It all feels old. It feels old and tired. And it feels old and tired that, we're having these, these clashes of the left and the right. And trust me, there are a lot of people, who have, quasi-political commentary who believe the left is batshit crazy, and they are not wrong. Okay. They're not wrong. If there's a side to choose, like, the side to choose is going to be the one that's going to be more rational, more sane, more logical, that looks at somebody and says, yeah, that person is a dude and this person is a woman, right? I mean, that is going to be the most logical and sane side. It doesn't take a PhD to kind of figure that shit out, right? Can we just agree upon that, please? But it's the whole left-right divide is the thing that is tearing this country apart. And that's part of it too, right? That is part of the gig. Mars in Gemini. I remember listening to Steve Pacinic say two things. Remember, Pachinik is an inside guy. Pachinik could easily be CIA. He could easily be DIA. He could be DOD. He could be Mossad. Pachinik is a guy that could be in any one of these alphabet groups and probably has been. And Pachinik said two things when he was on Alex Jones that just jumped right out. He said, number one, the Constitution is an outmoded document. Said that. He might be right. You might agree with him. Outmoded document. And then he also said that it's time to break up the United States. So Pachinik was talking about balkanization. And ever since COVID hit, we become much more balkanized. Red states do this, blue states do that. Red states do this, blue states do that. And Mars and Gemini is clear. It's like that's how balkanization manifests, right? It's like it's division. And Mars is squaring off against all these Piscean planets, and even Mercury's in the square. So, what do we see? And Trump is talking about how we're going to have red cities versus blue cities. It seems like that's where all this is going. But it feels old, right? It feels old and heavy. And Poseidon and Neptune is this old, weary god. And it's been summoned from the deep one more time. And it's kind of like, okay, can I just be put to sleep? Can I just be put to rest? And Poseidon is not a nice character. He is the ocean's equivalent of Hades, okay? That's the nature of Poseidon. And this is what we're dealing with here. It just feels like we're waiting around for the thing that's new. And on the start of the first day of the astrological new year, it's not new. It's old. And we're dealing with old storylines and old narratives. And it's like, come on, let's move on, right? And a lot of it is being determined by the media and the messages that we get over and over and over again. Now, we're going to have Saturn, Mars. Once Mars moves through Gemini, it's going to move into Cancer. We're going to have that Mars-Saturn trine in Cancer. At the same time, we got the ingress of Pluto into Aquarius. That is coming. That day is coming. So let me show you that chart. Let's see. Oh, this is the 21st. And I mean, this is really what the equinox should look like, right? You got the moon in 0 Aries, 0, 0, right? 0, right? 0, 50, 0, 50. They're there. They're right there. Perfect, right? New moon, sun. This would be theoretically the start of the astrological new year, but that's not the date or the time, right? The date or the time. I'll show you. I will show you right here. The official date and the time of the astrological new year is March 20th, 2023, 4:24 p.m. It's exactly what I showed you on the chart, right? But this theoretically should be the day. This is when we come into the new energy. And this is the day that Trump is getting arrested, on Tuesday, the start of the astrological new year, the christening, right? The christening of the astrological new year are Trump in cuffs. And the left is going to fucking love it, man. They are going to love it. Just watch the press tomorrow. Watch the press tomorrow with the sun at 29 Pisces. Man, they are going to feast. It's going to be a feast day. It's going to be, the golden buffet version for Loosh on the left. And the right's going to have their own version of it, right? The right will have their own version. But this is what the energy is supposed to look like. And Mars creeping ever closer towards Cancer. Mars, like in this day, even in this day with Mars, the 28th degree, the energy is all over the fucking place. It gets to 29 and there's nothing left. There's nothing. The Mr. Toad's wild ride with Mars and Gemini, the cars run out of gas. And then when it goes into Cancer, we got this nice Mars-Saturn trine. At the same time, Pluto goes into Aquarius briefly. That's 325. Wow. Pluto first ingress into Aquarius. And we get a look for a brief period of time. I think, May, it retrogrades back into Cancer. A brief period of time, we get a look into where things are going. And it feels like we have a brief period where we stick our head through a portal. And it's like we get to see weird shit, high strange. And then boom, it's interesting too, right? Even when Trump is talking about these freedom cities, that's all Pluto and Aquarius shit. You're gonna have Trump talking about it. You got Jordan Peterson talking about it. Of course, you've got Dr. Evil in Davos talking about it. It's all Pluto and Aquarius shit. It's all how we're going to be living in the future. But is that really how we're going to be living? And why didn't he talk about these things while he was president? That's what I want to know. Why wasn't he talking about this stuff while he was president? Why couldn't he have changed the dialogue instead of being on the defensive all the time? Interesting. Maybe the script just wasn't written yet. So that's what the energy looks like on the 21st. Perfect symmetry between the sun and the moon, 050, 050. It's right there, 12:23 p.m. This, I would say, is the prohibitive start of the astrological new year, even though it really begins at 29 Pisces. And that's just a weird time for something new to begin because it's old. It's old. So the energy doesn't kick in until Tuesday, and boy, does it kick in. Kicks in when they kick down Trump's door. I don't know how this is going to go. Is he going to walk down, turn himself in? This whole thing is going to be so fucking weird. Now, I've heard stories that Trump could run for president from prison. Well, wouldn't that be like the ultimate? The guy runs for president from prison and wins. And then we have a president in prison. There's always a first. There's always time for a first. I think being a president is kind of like being in a prison. Truly. It's kind of like being in a prison. So that's the energy right there, right? Boom. That's the energy for Trump cuffs. All right, it's getting late. We've been doing the show for almost 3.5 hours. So I'm gonna wrap it up a little bit here, but before I wanted to wrap it up, I wanted to go back, way back into time. And I wanted to look at the last time Mars was in Aries, because we're going to be dealing with the nodes shifting on July 25th. So it was June 28th, 2020, Mars goes into Aries. Now remember, right, so we have the sun in Cancer. On May 28th? The whole George Floyd thing happens. By this time, we are so deep into Mars. We had Mars cross Neptune, and it's like martyrdom of George Floyd. And I mean, it was a heavy duty summer, man. We were dealing with Mars and Aries, and it was not a fun time. I mean, it's also a time where once the fires cool down, we're dealing with COVID and, Operation Warp Speed and masks and, all the other bullshit that went along with it. And so during that Mars and Aries period, which stretched for a while, remember it goes retrograde and comes back again, you had an opportunity. It was a dress rehearsal for you. While the streets of America burned, while our law enforcement officers' hands were tied, or in some cases were deeply complicit with the burning of America, you had an opportunity with Mars and Aries to develop your inner warrior during that time. I mean, there was while all this was going on, while we're dealing with a coup, really, it was a color revolution. It was the purple revolution. You had the ability to figure out where you were. It was a hard time, though. Like, it was not an empowering time at all. But it could be if you honed in on the Mars energy and said, you know what, I am not going to fucking do that. Right? I'm not going to do that. I am not going to take the knee. I am not going to wear, the face Band-Aid. I'm not going to do any of it. And if you were able to cultivate your will during that period of time, congratulations. And there are degrees. I know some people had, for whatever reason, they had to do what they did. I'm not judging them. But if you held out and you didn't, you cultivated an aspect of will that might not have been available to you had you not been forced to do so, right? That was a dress rehearsal. When we have the nodes shifting in July, and I talked about them last week, you're going to have another opportunity. You have another opportunity to work on your will. So are we going to be in CBDC land, central bank digital currency world? That's going to be an even harder one. Because at least during COVID, you can transact. With the CBDC world, man, it's going to take an absolute steel will to get through a world where, if that's been engaged and activated, getting through that and saying no to the mark of the beast, really, that's going to be a very, very, very powerful time. The other thing too, as we move into the nodal cycle with Aries, we got these two big eclipses. And remember, I've been talking about the war in the cartels with the true node coming in Aries. It's coming. It's a war on cash. And they got to take the cartels out. And I keep seeing more and more news, more and more politicians spouting off against Mexico, turning the cartels into terror groups. They're about 20 years late in this shit, to be honest with you. But there's a reason why they're doing that. Because they need to eliminate cash as a competitor to their digital system. So I'm just going back in time, so you can see where you were in June of 2020 and what you were doing and what your life was about, and how you were working on shaping your will as a response to what was going on in the world around. The beautiful thing about astrology is that the astrology was giving you the opportunity to do that if you understood where Mars was and what it was doing, right? So we get to have a replay of that with the true node moving into Aries. The only difference is it's going to last a lot longer than just this brief Mars season in Aries. So I wanted to leave you with that because it's coming around again. We got Jupiter in Aries. We got the sun coming up here on the 21st. The sun in Aries, the new moon in Aries, Mercury in Aries, Jupiter in Aries. It is a time where you can catalyze things. It's a time where you can begin to, express your will, whatever that is, right? Express your will. And I think with Aries, it's about, figuring out a way to merge your will with God's will. They're all one, right? They're all one. And when that happens, you're untouchable. Really, there's nothing in the universe that can really stop you when you do that. But there's other things involved too. There's discipline, there's diet, and there's the body and working out. I started to go back to the gym again. I was really into the gym when Mars was in Aries. And then when the gym shut down, I actually found a one of those home gyms. And I figured out how to get it to the house, and the guys to set it up, and it was really kind of a work of manifestation art, if I do say so myself. So I'm back to the gym again, and man, was I sore this weekend. So get your body back in shape, right? Eat well. When we're in Aries, it is a freaking keto diet. It's a keto diet. Aries is lean. There's not a lot of carbs. You want fast fuel with Aries. So learn how to be fast. Get your fast twitch muscles up and running, because you're going to need it. Come July, you're going to need it, right? So you have, with this new moon, with what I would call the real new astrological year, although we're dealing with this past time shit, this is a time where you can get some forward momentum. So when those nodes change, you're already up and running, right? You're already firing at kind of optimal efficiency. You don't want to peak too soon. You don't want to work too hard, but you want to commit. You want to commit. You want to be on a path. So when those nodes hit, you're ready to go, right? So you want to get into training now. That's what you want to do. You want to get into training. And, when the time comes, when the curtain drops, you're ready. So this is a period of time from March to July, March, April, May, June. You got 4 months. And you can set it off right now by what you start doing on Tuesday. You put it all into play on Tuesday, because that is the unofficial beginning of the astrological new year. And I hope you find this helpful. I really do, because we're in for it now, right? We're in for a major sea change, especially when we get into July and these nodes shift. And we can speculate on what's going to happen with this Trump thing. It's more division. What you want to be is, you want to be more sovereign. You want to be more sovereign. You don't want to have to sort of bounce back and forth between the flotsam and the jetsam of the fake left-right paradigm. But you want to know who you are. All right. That's it for tonight. 3 hours, 35 minutes. The guys on the East Coast were like, come on, Robert, I got to go to bed. All right. Thanks for being here. Big shout out to Darlena Watson. If you want to hook up with her and do a little human design stuff with her, I'll have all her information in the show notes. So thanks for Michelle for being a good sport and coming on and have her HD read. And I'm in the business of doing readings too, and I use astrology. I know a little human design, but I come from the Western tradition of astrology, and I can help you out in that regard. What else? Anything else? Oh, another announcement. So if you are, a member, non-member, the newsletter is going out on the 22nd. Both members and non-members, we have an event coming up here in October in the Hill Country. Okay, so it's going to be great. Shauna Home is going to be here, and I can't wait to meet Shauna in person. And one of the things I really want to get into with Shauna is not just her story. Shauna's an Aries, and Shauna knows how to make things happen. When I first met Shauna, she was, she just written a book, and it's a great book. And she won't mind me sharing this. There was a period where Shauna was really struggling financially, but she never gave up. She had that Aries resolve, and she really wanted her sights set on a certain place in I think it was Nova Scotia, but eventually that changed. But the place itself was still the place in her head that she wanted to get to. And I'll be damned if she didn't get to that place. And it took her, I don't know, maybe 2 years. She worked her ass off, but she never relented, right? She had that place in mind and she got that place. And it was really amazing to see her like get there. I'm like, fuck, you're good. Right. And then she parlayed that place into another place that she wanted. And there's not two places, there's just one. But she was really a kind of world-class manifester. And so when she comes to the event, I want to really get into that with her. And that's one of the things I want to explore with her is that process for getting to where she wanted to go and the steps that she took along the way. And there's a lot of other things with Shauna that are great, and we'll explore some of those. Whether she'll be at the event. Mark S. and we talked about him coming. I hope he comes and be a part of our event in the Hill Country. And if he's there, I'm gonna turn him loose, man. And he'll do his kind of spirit caricature magic. And so hopefully he'll be there. I got some other people. It's gonna be a great event. It's gonna be part of an eclipse, right through the Hill Country. So we've got 26 rooms left. The entire Hill Country sold out. Like I got 26 of the last rooms at the Inn of the Hills. So that information is going to go out to members and subscribers. And probably I got to figure this out, but it's probably going to go to members first on the 22nd. There's not many rooms left. There's 26. And I think I'm going to reserve maybe 4 rooms myself for guests and for people that I need to hook up with some rooms. So that leaves us really with like 22 after that. So that's going to go out in the newsletter. And if you want to be here, I advise you get a room, right? So that's going to be date-wise. I'll tell you what the dates are now because I know you're gonna. Well, when is it, Robert? When is it? Well, I'll tell you. Okay, so check in at the hotel. It's going to be the weekend of the eclipse. Most people check in on the 12th, and then they leave on Monday the 16th, right? So we start on Friday. The eclipse is on, not mistaken, 14th, Saturday and Sunday. So we always have group activities. We have workshop stuff. We've got, I do my show, the Friday Forecast from the event, and you guys are the guests. So it's going to be pretty, I think, spectacular event. It'll be the 5th year, and put it on your calendar. So anyway, I'm going to put that out there, and I think that's about it. All right. Use your head in order to discern what's real, your heart to set what's possible. I'm Robert Phoenix. Members, if you're a member, we're going to have another town hall, and that's going to be on April 15th. That'll be on Zoom. That's on a Saturday. I'll be talking about Pluto in Aquarius, and we'll have had a bit of a dose of that by the time we meet online. So if you're a member, you get to show up and we get to hang out, and it's kind of a cool thing, kind of a private chat. All right, that's it. Thanks for being here. Mods, thank you very much for helping out in chat. Use your head in order to discern what's real, your heart to set what's possible. I'm Robert Phoenix. Take care.